The Book of Lies by Aleister Crowley, Chapter 1. Title page and foreword. The Book of Lies, first published in London in 1913, Aleister Crowley's little masterwork, has long been out of print. Its reissue with the author's own commentary gives occasion for a few notes. We have so much material by Crowley himself about this book that we can do no better than quote some passages which we find scattered about in the unpublished volumes of his Confessions. He writes, "Nonetheless, I could point to some solid achievement on the large scale, although it is composed of more or less disconnected elements. I refer to the Book of Lies. In this, there are 93 chapters. We count as a chapter the 2 pages filled respectively with a note of interrogation and a mark of exclamation. The other chapters contain sometimes a single word, more frequently from a half dozen to 20 paragraphs. The subject of each chapter is determined more or less definitely by the Kabbalistic import of its number. Thus, chapter 25 gives a revised ritual of the pentagram. 72 is a rondel with the refrain Es Shemam Parash, the divine name of 12 letters. 77 Laylah, whose name adds to that number. The number of the letter PP referred to Mars, a panegyric upon war. Sometimes the text is serious and straightforward. Sometimes its obscure oracles demand deep knowledge of the Kabbalah for interpretation. Others contain obscure allusions. Play upon words, secrets expressed in cryptogram, double or triple meanings, which must be combined in order to appreciate the full flavor. Others again are subtly ironical or cynical. At first sight, the book is a jumble of nonsense intended to insult the reader. It requires infinite study, sympathy, intuition, and initiation. Given these, I do not hesitate to claim that in none other of my writings have I given so profound and comprehensive an exposition of my philosophy. On every plane, my association with Freemasonry was therefore destined to be more fertile than almost any other study, and that, in a way, despite itself, a word should be pertinent with regard to the question of secrecy. It has become difficult for me to take this matter very seriously. Knowing what the secret actually is, I cannot attach much importance to artificial mysteries. Again, though the secret itself is of such tremendous import, and though it is so simple that I could disclose it, in a short paragraph, I might do so without doing much harm, for it cannot be used indiscriminately. I have found in practice that the secret of the OTO cannot be used unworthily. It is interesting in this connection to recall how it came into my possession. It had occurred to me to write a book the Book of Lies, which is also falsely called Breaks, the Wanderings, or falsification of the thought of Frater Perdurabo, which thought is itself untrue. One of these chapters bothered me. I could not write it. I invoked Dionysus with particular fervor, but still without success. I went off in desperation to change my luck by doing something entirely to my inclinations. In the midst of my disgust, the spirit came over me, and I scribbled the chapter down by the light of a farthing dip. When I read it over, I was as discontented as before, but I stuck it into the book in a sort of anger at myself as a deliberate act of spite towards my readers. Shortly after publication, the OHO outer head of the OTO came to me. At that time, I did not realize that there was anything in the OTO beyond a convenient compendium of the more important truths of Freemasonry. He said that since I was acquainted with the supreme secret of the order, I must be allowed the Aleister degree and obligated in regard to it. I protested that I knew no such secret. He said, "But you have printed it in the plainest language." I said that I could not have done so because I did not know it. He went to the bookshelves. Taking out a copy of the Book of Lies, he pointed to a passage in the despised chapter. It instantly flashed upon me the entire symbolism not only of Freemasonry, but of many other traditions blazed upon my spiritual vision. From that moment, the OTO assumed its proper importance in my mind. I understood that I held in my hands the key to the future progress of humanity. The commentary was written by Crowley, probably around 1921. The student will find it very helpful for the light it throws on many of its passages. The editors. Chapter 2. The Antiprimal Triad. The Antiprimal Triad, which is not God, nothing is. Nothing becomes. Nothing is not. The first triad, which is God I am. I utter the word. The abyss, the word is broken up. There is knowledge. Knowledge is relation. These fragments are creation. The broken manifests light. 2. The second triad, which is God, God the Father and Mother, is concealed in generation. God is concealed in the whirling energy of nature. God is manifest in gathering, harmony, consideration. The mirror of the sun and of the heart. The third triad bearing, preparing, wavering, flowing, flashing. Stability begetting. The 10th emanation, the world. Commentary, the chapter that is not a chapter. This chapter, numbered 0, corresponds to the negative, which is before Kether in the Kabbalistic system. The notes of interrogation and exclamation on the previous pages are the other two veils. The meaning of these symbols is fully explained in The Soldier and the Hunchback. This chapter begins by the letter 0, followed by a mark of exclamation. Its reference to the theogony of liber legis is explained in the note. But it also refers to Kais Phalos and Sperma, and is the exclamation of wonder or ecstasy, which is the ultimate nature of things. Note 1, silence, nuido, had it, rahorkut. Commentary, anti-primal triad. This is the negative trinity. Its 3 statements are, in an ultimate sense, identical. They harmonize being, becoming, not being, the 3 possible modes of conceiving the universe. The statement, nothing is not technically equivalent to something is fully explained in the essay called Bereshit. The rest of the chapter follows the Sephirotic system of the Kabbalah and constitutes a sort of quintessential comment upon that system. Those familiar with that system will recognize Kether, Chokmah, Baina in the first triad, Death in the abyss, Cheese, Jabura, Teferet in the second triad, Netzach, Had, and Nisad in the third triad, and Malkuth in the 10th emanation. It will be noticed that this cosmogony is very complete. The manifestation even of God does not appear until Tiferet, and the universe itself not until Malkuth. The chapter, many therefore be considered as the most complete treatise on existence ever written. Note 2. The unbroken absorbing all is called darkness. Chapter 3. The Sabbath of the Goat. 0. The heart of Nox, the night of Pan. Duality. Energy, death, death, begetting. The supporters of 0, to beget is to die. To die is to beget, cast the seed into the field of night. Life and death are 2 names of A. Kill thyself. Neither of these alone is enough. Commentary. The shape of the figure, I suggest the phallus. This chapter is therefore called the Sabbath of the Goat, the witch's Sabbath, in which the phallus is adored. The chapter begins with a repetition of one referred to in the previous chapter. It is explained that this triad lives in night, the night of Pan, which is mystically called Nox, and this is identified with the in this word. In is the tarot symbol, death, and the X or cross is the sign of the phallus. For a fuller commentary on Nox, see Liber 7, reference chapter 1. Nox adds to 210, which symbolizes the reduction of duality to unity, and thence to negativity, and is thus a hieroglyph of the great work. The word Pan is then explained. The letter of Mars is a hieroglyph of 2 pillars, and therefore suggests duality. A, by its shape, is the pentagram, energy, and N, by its tarot attribution, is death. Nox is then further explained, and it is shown that the ultimate trinity, 0, is supported or fed by the process of death and begetting, which are the laws of the universe. The identity of these 2 is then explained. The student is then charged to understand the spiritual importance of this physical procession in line 5. It is then asserted that the ultimate letter, A, has 2 names, or phases, life and death. Line 7 balances line 5. It will be noticed that the phraseology of these 2 lines is so conceived that the one contains the other more than itself. Line 8 emphasizes the importance of performing both. Chapter 4. The Cry of the Hawk. Hor hath a secret 4-fold name. It is do what thou wilt. 3-4 words, not one, many all. Thou child, thy name is holy, thy kingdom is come, thy will is done. Here is the bread, here is the blood. Bring us through temptation, deliver us from good and evil. That mine as thine be the crown of the kingdom, even now. Abrahabra. These 10 words are for the name of the one. Commentary, the hawk referred to as Horus. The chapter begins with a comment on Liber Legis 3, 49. though what thou wilt are also identified with the 4 possible modes of conceiving the universe. Follows a version of the Lord's Prayer suitable to Horus. Compare this with the version in chapter 44. There are 10 sections in this prayer, and as the prayers attributed to Horus, they are called 4 as above explained. But it is only the name of Horus which is fourfold. He himself is one. This may be compared with the Kabbalistic doctrine of the 10 Sephiroth as an expression of Tetragit. Any book for free on www.tabika.com. Grammaton. 1 + 2 + 3 + 4 = 10. It is now seen that this hawk is not solar, but mercurial, hence the words, the cry of the hawk, the essential part of Mercury being his voice, and the number of the chapter, B, which is Beth, the letter of Mercury, the magus of the tarot, who has 4 weapons. And it must be remembered that this card is numbered 1, again connecting all these symbols with the phallus. The essential weapon of Mercury is the caduceus. Note 3, 14 letters. Quid vols elude fac qvif. 196 = 14 and 2. Du au. Chapter 5. The oyster, the brothers of AA, are one with the mother of the child, for the many is as adorable to the one is to the many. This is the love of these. Creation parturition is the bliss of the one. Coation dissolution is the bliss of the many. The all, thus interwoven of these, is bliss. Naught is beyond bliss. The man delights in uniting with the woman in parting from the child. The brothers of AA are women. The aspirants to AA are men. Commentary Gimel is the high priestess of the tarot. This chapter gives the initiated feminine point of view. It therefore called the oyster a symbol of the Yoni in Equinox X. The Temple of Solomon the King, it is explained how masters of the temple or brothers of AA have changed the formula of their progress. These 2 formulae, solve et coagula, are now explained, and the universe is exhibited as the interplay between these 2. This also explains the statement in Liber Verse 28-30. Note 4. They cause all men to worship it. Chapter 6. Peaches, soft and hollow, how thou dost overcome the hard and full. It dies, it gives itself, to thee is the fruit. Be thou the bride, thou shalt be the mother hereafter, to all impressions thus. Let them not overcome thee, yet let them breed within thee. The least of the impressions, come to its perfection, is Pan. Receive 1,000 lovers. Thou shalt bear but one child. This child shall be the heir of Fate the Father. Commentary, Daleth is the empress of the tarot, the letter of Venus, and the title Peaches again refers to the Yoni. The chapter is a counsel to accept all impressions. It is the formula of the Scarlet Woman. But no impression must be allowed to dominate you, only to fructify you, just as the artist, seeing an object, does not worship it, but breathes a masterpiece from it. This process is exhibited as one aspect of the great work. The last 2 paragraphs may have some reference to the 13th Aether, see the vision and the voice. Chapter 7. The Battle of the Ants. That is not which is. The only word is silence. The only meaning of that word is not. Thoughts are false. Fatherhood is unity disguised as duality. Peace implies war. Power implies war. Harmony implies war. Victory implies war. Glory implies war. Foundation implies war. Alas, for the kingdom wherein all these are at war. Commentary. He is the letter of Aries, a marshal suggests war. The ants are chosen as small busy objects. Yet he, being a holy letter, raises the beginning of the chapter to a contemplation of the pentagram, considered as a glyph of the ultimate. In line 1, being is identified with not being. In line 2, speech with silence. In line 3, the logos is declared as a negative. Line 4 is another phrasing of the familiar Hindu statement that which can be thought is not true. In line 5, we come to an important statement. An adumbration of the most daring thesis in this book, Father and Son, are not really 2, but 1. Their unity being the Holy Ghost, the semen. The human form is a non-essential accretion of this quintessence. So far, the chapter has followed the Sephiroth from Kether to Cheesed, and Cheesed is united to the supernal triad by virtue of its phallic nature, for not only is a mountain a phallic god, and Jupiter the father of all, but 4 is Daleth, Venus. And Cheese refers to water, from which Venus sprang, and which is the symbol of the mother in the Tetragrammaton. See Chapter 0, God the Father and Mother is concealed in generation, but cheesed in the lower sense is conjoined to microprosopus. It is the true link between the greater and lesser countenances, whereas death is the false. Compare the doctrine of the higher and lower manas in Theosophy. The rest of the chapter, therefore, points out the duality, and therefore the imperfection of all the lower Sephiroth in their essence. Chapter 8, Caviar. The word was uttered, the one exploded into 1,000 million worlds. Each world contained 1,000 million spheres. Each sphere contained 1,000 million planes. Each plane contained 1,000 million stars. Each star contained a many thousand million things. Of these the reasoner took 6, and Preening said, this is the one and the all. These 6 the adept harmonized, and said, this is the heart of the one and the all. These 6 were destroyed by the master of the temple, and he spake not. The ash thereof was burnt up by the magus into the word. Of all this did the Ipsissimus know nothing. Commentary. This chapter is presumably called Caviar, because that substance is composed of many spheres. The account given of creation is the same as that familiar to students of the Christian tradition, the Logos transforming the unity into the many. We then see what different classes of people do with the many. The rationalist takes the 6 Sephiroth of microprosopus in a crude state and declares them to be the universe. This folly is due to the pride of reason. The adept concentrates the microcosm in Tifereth, recognizing an unity even in the microcosm. But qua adept, he can go no further. The master of the temple destroys all these illusions, but remains silent. See the description of his functions in the Equinox, Liber 418, and elsewhere. In the next grade, the word is reformulated for the magus and chokmah, the dyad, the logos. The Ipsissimus, in the highest grade of the AA, is totally unconscious of this process, or it might be better to say he recognizes it as nothing, in that Pasidi's sense of the word, which is only intelligible in Samasamadhi. Chapter 9, The Dinosaurs. None are they whose number is 6, 5, else were they 6 indeed. 7, 6 are these 6 that live not in the city of the pyramids under the night of Pan. There was Lao Tzu, there was Siddhartha, there was Krishna. There was Tahuti, there was Moshe, there was Dionysus. 7, there was Mahmud. But the 7th men called Perdurabo, for enduring unto the end, at the end was naught to endure. Commentary. This chapter gives a list of those special messengers of the infinite who initiate periods. They are called dinosaurs because of their seeming to be terrible devouring creatures. They are masters of the temple, for their number is 6, 1 plus 2 plus 3, the mystic number of Binah. But they are called none because they have attained. If it were not so, they would be called 6 in its bad sense of mere intellect. They are called 7, although they are 8 because Lao Tzu counts as naught, owing to the nature of his doctrine. The reference to their living not is to be found in Liber 418. The word perdurabo means I will endure unto the end. The allusion is explained in the note. Siddhartha or Gautama was the name of the last Buddha. Krishna was the principal incarnation of the Indian Vishnu, the preserver, the principal expounder of Vedantism. Tahuti or Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom. Moshe, Moses, the founder of the Hebrew system. Dionysus, probably an ecstatic from the east. Mahmud, Muhammad. All these were men. Their godhead is the result of Nithapia, notes, 5 masters of the temple, whose grade has the mystic number 6 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3. 6. These are not 8 as apparent, for Lao Tzu counts as 0. 7. The legend of Christ is only a corruption and perversion of other legends, especially of Dionysus. Compare the account of Christ before Herod Pilate in the Gospels, and of Dionysus before Pentheus in the Bacchae. 8-0, the last letter of Perdurabo, is not. Chapter 10, Steeped Horsehair. Mind is a disease of semen. All that a man is or may be is hidden therein. Bodily functions are parts of the machine. Silent unless in dis-ease, but mind never at ease, creaketh I. This I persisteth not, posteth not through generations, changeth momently, finally is dead. Therefore is man only himself when lost to himself in the charioting. Commentary, Cheth is the chariot in the tarot. The charioteer is the bearer of the Holy Grail. All this should be studied in Liber 418, the 12th Athir. The chapter is called Steeped Horsehair because of the medieval tradition that by steeping horsehair a snake is produced, and the snake is the hieroglyphic representation of semen, particularly in Gnostic and Egyptian emblems. The meaning of the chapter is quite clear. The whole race consciousness, that which is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, is hidden therein. Therefore, except in the case of an adept, man only rises to a glimmer of the universal consciousness, while in the orgasm the mind is blotted out. Chapter 11. The Branks, being is the noun, form is the adjective. Matter is the noun, motion is the verb. Wherefore hath being clothed itself with form? Wherefore hath matter manifested itself in motion? Answer not, silent one. For there is no wherefore, no because. The name of that is not known. The pronoun interprets, that is, misinterprets, it. Time and space are adverbs. Duality begat the conjunction. The conditioned is father of the preposition. The article also marketh division, but the interjecition is the sound that endeth in the silence. Destroy therefore the 8 parts of speech. The 9th is nigh unto truth. This also must be destroyed before thou enterest into the silence. Ow. Commentary. Teth is the tarot trump, strength in which a woman is represented closing the mouth of a lion. This chapter is called the Branks, an even more powerful symbol, for it is the Scottish and only known apparatus for closing the mouth of a woman. The chapter is formally an attack upon the parts of speech, the interjection, the meaningless utterance of ecstasy, being the only thing worth saying, yet even this is to be regarded as a lapse. Aum represents the entering into the silence, as we'll observe upon pronouncing it. Chapter 12. Windlestraws. The abyss of hallucinations has law and reason, but in truth there is no bond between the toys of the gods. This reason and law is the bond of the great lie. Truth, 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 crieth the Lord, the abyss of hallucinations. There is no silence in that abyss, for all that men call silence is its speech. This abyss is also called hell and the many. Its name is consciousness and the universe among men. But that which neither is silent nor speaks rejoices therein. Commentary. There is no apparent connection between the number of this chapter and its subject. It does, however, refer to the key of the tarot called the Hermit, which represents him as cloaked. Jod is the concealed phallus as opposed to Tau, the extended phallus. This chapter should be studied in the light of what is said in Aha, and in the Temple of Solomon, the king about the reason. The universe is insane. The law of cause and effect is an illusion, or so it appears in the abyss, which is thus identified with consciousness, the many and both. But within this is a secret unity which rejoices, this unit being far beyond any conception. Chapter 13. The glowworm concerning the holy three in naught, Nuit, Hadit, Ra, or Quit, are only to be understood by the master of the temple. They are above the abyss and contain all contradiction in themselves. Below them is a seeming duality of chaos and Babylon. These are called father and mother, but it is not so. They are called brother and sister, but it is not so. They are called husband and wife, but it is not so. The reflection of all is Pan. The night of Pan is the annihilation of the all. Cast down through the abyss is the light, the rosy cross, the rapture of union that destroys. That is the way. How infinite is the distance from this to that, yet all is here and now, nor is there any there or then. For all that is, what is it but a manifestation, that a part, that is a falsehood, of that which is not. Yet that which is not neither is nor is not, that which is. Identity is perfect. Therefore, the W of identity is but a lie, for there is no subject, and there is no predicate, nor is there the contradictory of either of these things. Holy, holy, holy are these truths that I utter, knowing them to be but falsehoods, broken mirrors, troubled waters. Hide me, O Our Lady, in thy womb, for I may not endure the rapture. In this utterance of falsehood upon falsehood, whose contradictories are also false, it seems as if that which I uttered not were true. Blessed, unutterably blessed, is this last of the illusions. Let me play the man and thrust it from. Commentary: the glowworm may perhaps be translated as a little light in the darkness, though there may be a subtle reference to the nature of that light. 11 is the great number of magic, and this chapter indicates a supreme magical method. But it is really called 11 because of Liber Legis, I, 60. The first part of the chapter describes the universe in its highest sense down to Tiferet. It is the new and perfect cosmogony of Liber Legis. Chaos and Babylon are Chokmah and Binah, but they are really one. The essential unity of the supernal triad is here insisted upon. Pan is a generic name, including this whole system of its manifested side. Those which are above the abyss are therefore said to live in the night of Pan. They are only reached by the annihilation of the all. Thus, the master of the temple lives in the night of now. Below the abyss, the manifested part of the master of the temple also reaches Samadhi as the way of annihilation. Paragraph 7 begins by a reflection produced by the preceding exposition. This reflection is immediately contradicted. The author being a master of the temple, he thereupon enters into his samadhi, and he piles contradiction upon contradiction, and thus a higher degree of rapture with every sentence, until his armory is exhausted, and with the word amen, he enters the supreme state. Chapter 14. The dragon flies. Io is the cry of the lower as one of the higher. In figures they are 1001. 9 in letters they are joy. 10. For when all is equilibrated, when all is beheld from without all, there is joy, joy, joy. That is but one facet of a diamond. Every other facet whereof is more joyful than joy itself. Commentary: the dragonflies were chosen as symbols of joy because of the author's observation as a naturalist. Paragraph 1 mere repeats chapter 4 in quintessence, 1001, being all 1 to 13. Is a symbol of the complete unity manifested as the many, for 1 to 13, gives the whole course of numbers from the simple unity of 1 to the complex unity of 13, impregnated by the magical 11. I may add a further comment on the number 91, 13, 1 plus 3 is a higher form of 4. 4 is a mound, the god of generation, and 13 is 1, the phallic unity. Daleth is the yoni. And 91 is ambivayame, a form of the phallus made complete through the intervention of the yoni. This again connects with the 10 and 1 of paragraph 1, and of course 10 is the rapture cry of the Greeks. The whole chapter is again a comment on Liber Legis 128 to 30. Notes 9, 1 equals 11. The petals of the Sahas Rarakaka. 10. Joy equals 101, the egg of spirit in equilibrium between the pillars of the temple. Chapter 15. Pilgrim talk. Oh, thou that settest out upon the path, false is the phantom that thou seekest. When thou hast it, thou shalt know all bitterness, thy teeth fixed in the Sodom apple. Thus hast thou been lured along that path whose terror else had driven thee far away. Thou that stridest upon the middle of the path, no phantoms mock thee. For the stride's sake thou stridest. Thus art thou lured along that path whose fascination else had driven thee far away. Thou that drawest toward the end of the path, effort is no more. Faster, faster dost thou. Thy weariness is changed into ineffable wit. For there is not thou upon that path. Thou hast become the way. Commentary: this chapter is perfectly clear to anyone who has studied the career of an adept. The Sodom apple is an uneatable fruit found in the desert. Chapter 16. Onion peelings. The universe is the practical joke of the general at the expense of the particular, quoth Frater Perdurabo, and laughed. But those disciples nearest to him wept, seeing the universal sorrow. Those next to them laughed, seeing the universal joke. Below these certain disciples wept, then certain laughed, others next wept. Others next laughed, next others wept. Last came those that wept, because they could not see the joke, and those that laughed, lest they should be thought not to see the joke, and thought it safe to act like Frater Perdurabo. But though Frater Perdurabo laughed openly, he also at the same time wept secretly. And in himself he neither laughed nor wept, nor did he mean what he said. Commentary, the title Onion Peelings, refers to the well-known incident in Peer Gynt. The chapter resembles strongly Dupin's account of how he was able to win at the game of guessing. Audrey. See Poe's tale of the Purloined Letter. But this is a more serious piece of psychology. In one's advance towards a comprehension of the universe, one changes radically one's point of view. Nearly always it amounts to a reversal. This is the cause of most religious controversy. Paragraph 1, however, is Frater Perdurabo's formulation of his perception of the universal joke, also described in chapter 34. All individual existence is tragic. Perception of this fact is the essence of comedy. Household Gods is an attempt to write pure comedy. The back of Euripides is another. At the end of the chapter, it is, however, seen that to the master of the temple, the opposite perception occurs simultaneously, and that he himself is beyond both of these. And in the last paragraph, it is shown that he realizes the truth as beyond any statement of it. Chapter 17. The gun barrel, mighty and erect is this will of mine, this pyramid of fire whose summit is lost in heaven. Upon it have I burned the corpse of my desires. Mighty and erect is this of my will. The seed thereof is that which I have borne within me from eternity. And it is lost within the body of Our Lady of the Stars. I am not I. I am but an hollow tube to bring down fire from heaven. Mighty and marvelous is this weakness, this heaven, which draweth me into her womb, this dome which hideth, which absorbeth. This is the night wherein I am lost, the love through which I am no longer hide. Commentary, card 15 in the tarot is the devil, the medieval blind for Pan. The title of the chapter refers to the phallus, which is here identified with the will. The Greek word has the same number as he. This chapter is quite clear, but one might remark in the last paragraph, a reference to the nature of samadhi. As man loses his personality in physical love, so does the magician annihilate his divine personality in that which is beyond. The formula of samadhi is the same from the lowest to the highest. The rosy cross is the universal key, but as one proceeds, the cross becomes greater, until it is the ace the rose, until it is the wood. Chapter 18. The stag beetle. Death implies change and individuality. If thou be that which hath no person, which is beyond the changing, even beyond changelessness, what hast thou to do with death? The bird of individuality is ecstasy, so also is its death. In love the individuality is slain. Who loves not love, love death therefore, and long eagerly for it, die daily. Commentary. This seems a comment on the previous chapter. The stag beetle is a reference to Khepra, the Egyptian god of midnight, who bears the sun through the underworld, but it is called the stag beetle to emphasize his horns. Horns are the universal hieroglyph of energy, particularly of phallic energy. The 16th key of the tarot is the blasted tower. In this chapter, death is regarded as a form of marriage. Modern Greek peasants, in many cases, cling to pagan belief and suppose that in death they are united to the deity which they have cultivated during life. This is a consummation devoutly to be wished, Shakespeare. In the last paragraph, the master urges his pupils to practice samadhi every day. Chapter 19, The Swan. There is a swan whose name is ecstasy. It wingeth from the deserts of the north. It wingeth through the blue. It wingeth over the fields of rice. At its coming they push forth the green. In all the universe, this swan alone is motionless. It seems to move as the sun seems to move. Such is the weakness of our sight. Fool, criest thou. Amen. Motion is relative. There is nothing that is still. Against this swan I shot an arrow. The white breast poured forth blood. Men smote me. Then, perceiving that I was but a pure fool, they let me pass. Thus and not otherwise I came to the temple of the Graal. Commentary, this swan is The chapter is inspired by Frater P.'s memory of the wild swans he shot in the Tall Fu. In paragraphs 3 and 4, it is, however, recognized that even is impermanent. There is no meaning in the word stillness, so long as motion exists. In a boundless universe, one can always take any one point, however mobile, and postulated a point at rest, calculating the motions of all the points relatively to it. Their hate and contempt are necessary steps to his acquisition of sovereignty over them. The story of the gospel and that of Parsifal will occur to the mind. Note 11. This chapter must be read in connection with Wagner as Parsifal. Chapter 20. Dewdrops. Verily, love is death, and death is life to come. Man returneth not again. The stream floweth not uphill. The old life is no more. There is a new life that is not his. Yet that life is of his very essence. It is more he than all that he calls he. In the silence of a dewdrop is every tendency of his soul, and of his mind, and of his body. It is the quintessence and the elixir of his being. Therein are the forces that made him and his father's father before him. This is the dew of immortality. Let this go free, even as it will. Thou art not its master, but the vehicle of it. Commentary. The 18th key of the tarot refers to the moon, which was supposed to shed dew. The appropriateness of the chapter title is obvious. The chapter must be read in connection with chapters 1 and 16. The penultimate paragraph, Velndu, is identified with Emeralta. And in the last paragraph, the disciple is charged to let it have its own way. It has a will of its own, which is more in accordance with the cosmic will than that of the man who is its guardian and servant. Chapter 21. The leopard and the deer. The spots of the leopard are the sunlight in the glade. Pursue thou the deer stealthily at thy pleasure. The dappling of the deer is the sunlight in the glade. Concealed from the leopard do thou fee at thy pleasure. Resemble all that surroundeth thee, yet be thyself, and take thy pleasure among the living. This is that which is written lurk 1 in the book of the law. Commentary 19 is the last trump, representative of God, and is in the microcosm. There is a certain among its secret power. The sun, which is the macrosm, as the phallus universality and adaptability. The chapter is taken from Rudyard Kipling's Just So Stories. The master urges his disciples to a certain holy stealth, a concealment of the real purpose of their lives, in this way making the best of both worlds. This counsels a course of action hardly distinguishable from hypocrisy, but the distinction is obvious to any clear thinker, though not altogether. So the Frater P. Chapter 22. Samson. The universe is in equilibrium, therefore he that is without it, though his force be but a feather, can overturn the universe. Be not caught within that web, child of freedom. Be not entangled in the universal lie, child of truth. Commentary. Samson, the Hebrew Hercules, is said in the legend to have pulled down the walls of the music hall where he was engaged to make sport for the Philistines, destroying them and himself. Milton founds a poem on this fable. The first paragraph is a corollary of Newton's first law of motion. The key to infinite power is to reach the bournless beyond. Chapter 23. The blind Webster. It is not necessary to understand. It is enough to adore. The God may be of clay. Adore him. He becomes God. We ignore what created us. We adore what we create. Let us create nothing but God. That which causes us to create is our true father and mother. We create in our own image, which is theirs. Let us create, therefore, without fear, for we can create nothing that is not God. Commentary. The 21st key of the tarot is called the universe and refers to the letter tau, the phallus in manifestation. Hence the title, The Blind Webster. The universe is conceived as Buddhists on the one hand and rationalists on the other would have us do fatal and without intelligence. Even so, it may be delightful to the Creator. The moral of this chapter is, therefore, an exposition of the last paragraph of chapter 18. It is the critical spirit which is the devil and gives rise to the appearance of evil. Chapter 24. The Despot. The waiters of the best eating houses mock the whole world. They estimate every client at his properness, I know certainly, because they always treat me with profound respect. Thus they have flattered me into praising them thus publicly. Yet it is true, and they have this insight because they serve, and because they can have no personal interest in the affairs of those whom they serve. An absolute monarch would be absolutely wise and good, but no man is strong enough to have no interest. Therefore, the best king would be pure chance. It is pure chance that rules the universe. Therefore, and only therefore life is good. Comment would only mar the supreme simplicity of this chapter. Chapter 25, Skidoo. What man is at ease in his inn? Get out. Why is the world in cold? Get out. Thou hast become an initiate. Get out. But thou canst not get out by the way. Thou earnest in. The way out is the way. Get out. For out is love and wisdom and power. 12. Get out. If thou hast already, first get out. 13. Then get 0, and so at last get out. Commentary. Both 23 and skidoo are American words meaning get out. This chapter describes the great work under the figure of a man ridding himself of all his accidents. He first leaves the life of comfort, then the world at large, and lastly, even the initiates. In the 4th section is shown that there is no return for one that has started on this path. The word out is then analyzed and treated as a noun. Besides the explanation in the note is the yoni, T the lingam, and U the hierophant, the 5th card of the tarot, the pentagram. It is thus practically identical with Yo-O. The rest of the chapter is clear for the note. Notes 12 equals character, the devil of the Sabbath. U equals the hierophant or redeemer. T equals strength, the lion. 13 T manhood, the sign of the cross or phallus. The holy guardian angel, the first syllable of Ajita. See the Upanishads? 0, nothing or know it. Chapter 26, the hawk and the blindworm. This book would translate beyond reason into the words of reason. Explain thou snow to them of Adam, and the slaves of reason call this book abuse of language. They are right. Language was made for men to eat and drink, make love, do barter, die. The wealth of a language consists in its abstracts. The poorest tongues have wealth of concretes. Therefore have adepts praised silence. At least it does not mislead as speech does. Also, speech is a symptom of thought. Yet, silence is but the negative side of truth. The positive side is beyond even silence. Nevertheless, one true God crieth Rilial, and the laughter of the death rattle is akin. Commentary, the hawk is the symbol of sight, the blindworm of blindness. Those who are under the dominion of reason are called blind. In the last paragraph is reasserted the doctrine of chapters 1, 8, 16, and 18. For the meaning of the word, really you consult Liber 418. Chapter 27, the star ruby. Facing east in the center, draw deep, deep thy breath, closing thy mouth, with thy right forefinger pressed against thy lower lip. Then dashing down the hand with a great sweep back and out, expelling forcibly thy breath cry. With the same forefinger touch thy forehead, and say thy member, and say 14 thy right shoulder, and say thy left shoulder, and say all. Then clasp thine hands, locking the fingers, and cry. Advance to the east. Imagine strongly a pentagram aright in thy forehead. Drawing the hands to the eyes, fling it forth, making the sign of Horus, and roar. Retire thine hand in the sign of Horapakrat. Go round to the north and repeat, but scream. Go round to the west and repeat. But say, go round to the south and repeat, but bellow. Completing the circle widdershins, retire to thy voice in the pain. With these words with the signs of NOx. Extend the arms in the form of a tau, and say low but clear, Omega C. Upsilon Nuto Epsilon, Omicron, Kappa Alpha Iota C, Omicron. Repeat the cross Kabbalistic as above, and end as thou didst begin. Commentary. 25 is the square of 5, and the pentagram has the red color of Tabura. The chapter is a new and more elaborate version of the banishing ritual of the pentagram. It would be improper to comment further upon an official ritual, the AA Note 14. The secret sense of these words is to be sought in the numberation thereof. Chapter 28. The elephant and the tortoise, the absolute and the conditioned together, make the one absolute. The second, who is the fourth, the demiurge, whom all nations of men call the first, is a lie grafted upon a lie multiplied by a lie. Fourfold is he, the elephant upon whom the universe is poised, but the carapace of the tortoise supports and covers all. This tortoise is sixfold, the holy hexagram. 15. These 6 and 4 are 10, 10, the one manifested that returns into the not unmanifest. The Almighty, the All-Ruler, the All-Knower, the All-Father, adored by all men and by me abhorred. Be thou accursed, be thou abolished, be thou annihilated, amen. Comment are we. The title of the chapter refers to the Hindu legend. The first paragraph should be read in connection with our previous remarks upon the number. The number of the chapter 26 is that of Tetragrammaton, the manifest creator, Jehovah. He is called the second in relation to that which is above the abyss, comprehended under the title of the first. But the vulgarians conceive of nothing beyond the creator, and therefore call him the first. He is really the fourth, being encheesed, and of course his nature is fourfold. This four is conceived of as the dyad multiplied by the dyad, falsehood confirming falsehood. Paragraph 3 introduces a new conception, that of the square within the hexagram, the universe enclosed in the law of lingam yoni. The penultimate paragraph shows the redemption of the universe by this law. The figure 10, like the work 10, again suggests lingam yoni, besides the exclamation given in the text. The last paragraph curses the universe, thus unredeemed. The 11 initial A's in the last sentence are magic pentagrams emphasizing this curse. Note 15. In nature, the tortoise has 6 members at angles of 60 degrees. Chapter 29. The sorcerer. A sorcerer, by the power of his magic, had subdued all things to himself. Would he travel? He could fly through space more swiftly than the stars. Would he eat, drink, and take his pleasure? There was none that did not instantly obey his bidding. In the whole system of 10 million times 10 million spheres upon the 2 and 20 million planes, he had his desire, and with all this he was but himself. Alas! Commentary. This chapter gives the reverse of the medal. It is the contrast to chapter 15. The sorcerer is to be identified with the brother of the left-hand path. Chapter 30. The pole star. Love is all virtue, since the pleasure of love is but love, and the pain of love is but love. Love taketh no heed of that which is not, and of that which is. Absence exalteth love, and presence exalteth love. Love moveth ever from height to height of ecstasy, and faileth never. The wings of love droop not with time, nor slacken for life or for death. Love destroyeth self, uniting self with that which is not self, so that love breedeth all and none in one. Is it not so? No. Then thou art not lost in love. Speak not of love. Love always yieldeth, love always hardeneth. Maybe I write it, but to write her name. Commentary. This now introduces the principal character of this book, Layla, who is the ultimate feminine symbol to be interpreted on all planes. But in this chapter, little hint is given of anything beyond physical love. It is called the pole star because Layla is the one object of devotion to which the author ever turns. Note the introduction of the name of the beloved in acrostic in line 15. Chapter 31. The Southern Cross. Love, I love you. Night, night, cover us, thou art night, my love. And there are no stars but thine eyes, dark night, sweet night, so warm and yet so fresh, so scented yet so holy. Cover me, cover me. Let me be no more, let me be thine, let me be thou. Let me be neither thou nor I, let there be love in night and night in love. Nox, the night of Pan, and Layla, the night before his threshold. Commentary, reference. Chapter 29 continues chapter 28. Note that the word Layla is the Arabic for night. The author begins to identify the beloved with the Nox previously spoken of. The chapter is called the Southern Cross because the physical plane, Layla, is an Australian. Chapter 32. Jhana Dreams. Dreams are imperfections of sleep. Even so is consciousness the imperfection of waking. Dreams are impurities in the circulation of the blood. Even so is consciousness a disorder of life. Dreams are without proportion, without good sense, without truth. So also is consciousness. Awake from dream, the truth is known. 16. Awake from waking, the truth is the unknown. Commentary. This chapter is to read in connection with chapter and also with those previous chapters in which the reason is attacked. The illusion in the title is obvious. This sum in proportion, dream, waking. Waking. Samadhi is a favorite analogy of Frederick, who frequently employs it in his Holy Disnote. 16. That is the truth that he hath slept. Chapter 33. The garrote, it moves from motion into rest, and rests from rest into motion. These it does alway, for time is not. So that it does neither of these things. It does that one thing which we must express by two things, neither of which possesses any rational meaning. Yet its doing, which is no doing, is simple and yet complex, is neither free or necessary. For all these ideas express relation, and it, comprehending all relation in its simplicity, is out of all relation even with itself. All this is true and false, and it is true and false to say that it is true and false. Strain forth thine intelligence, man worthy one, chosen of it to apprehend the discourse of the Master, for thus thy reason shall at last break down, as the fetter is struck from a slave's throat. Commentary, the number 31 refers to the Hebrew word alei, which means not unto character, is now introduced under the title of it, I being the secret, and T being the manifested, phallus. This is, however, only one aspect of it, which may perhaps be defined as the ultimate reality. It is apparently a more exalted thing than that. This chapter should be compared with chapter 11. That method of destroying the reason by formulating contradictions is definitely inculcated. The reason is situated in diath, which corresponds the throat in human anatomy. Hence the title of the chapter, the garrote. The idea is that by forcing the mind to follow, and as far as possible to realize, the language of beyond the abyss, the student will succeed in bringing his reason under control. As soon as the reason is vanquished, the garrote is removed. Then the influence of the supernal s, kether chokma baina, no longer inhibited by diath, can descend upon Tifereth, where the human will is situated, and flood it with the ineffable light. Chapter 34. The Mountaineer. Consciousness is a symptom of disease. All that moves well moves without will. All skillfulness, all strain, all intention is contrary ease. Practice 1,000 times, and it becomes difficult. 1,000, and it becomes easy. 1,000 times 1,000, and it is no longer thou that doeth it, but it that doeth itself through thee. Not until then is that which is done well done. Thus spoke Froder Perdurabo as he leapt from rock to rock of the moraine, without ever casting his eyes upon the ground. Commentary. This title is a mere reference to the metaphor of the last paragraph of the chapter. Frater P, as is well known, is a mountaineer. This chapter should be read in conjunction with chapters 8 and 30. It is a practical instruction, the gist of which is easily to be apprehended by comparatively short practice of mantra yoga. A mantra is not being properly said as long as the man knows he is saying it. The same applies to all other forms of magic. Chapter 35. Baphomet, a black two-headed eagle is God, even a black triangle is he. In his claws he beareth a sword, yea, a sharp sword is held therein. This eagle is burnt up in the great fire, yet not a feather is scorched. This eagle is swallowed up in the great sea, yet not a feather is wetted, so flieth he in the air, and lighteth upon the earth at his pleasure. So spake Jacobus Burgundus Mesrolensis 17, the Grand Master of the Temple. And of the god that is ass-headed did he dare not speak? Commentary 33 is the number of the last degree of Masonry, which was conferred upon Frater Pete in the year 1900 of the Vulgar Era by Don Jesus de Medina Sidonia in the city of Mexico. Baphomet is the mysterious name of the god of the Templars. The eagle described in paragraph 1 is that of the Templars. This Masonic symbol is, however, identified by Frater P with a bird which is master of the four elements, and therefore of the name Tetragrammaton. Jacobus Burgundus Malensis suffered martyrdom in the city of Paris in the year 1314 of the Vulgar Era. The secrets of his order were, however, not lost, and are still being communicated to the worthy by his successors, as is intimated by the last paragraph, which implies knowledge of a secret worship, of which the Grand Master did not speak. The eagle may be identified, though not too closely, with the hawk previously spoken of. It is perhaps the sun, the exoteric object of worship of all sensible cults. It is not to be confused with other objects of the mystic aviary, such as the swan, phoenix, pelican, dove, and so on, are the initials of the 3 pillars of the temple, and add to 5213x4 BN, the sun. Chapter 36. The smoking dog, each active man, is the twist and double of an hare. Love and death are the greyhounds that course him. God bred the hounds, and taketh his pleasure in the sport. This is the comedy of Pan, that man should think he hunteth, while those hounds hunt him. This is the tragedy of man when facing love and death he turns to bay. He is no more hare, but war. There are no other comedies or tragedies. Cease then to be the mockery of God. In savagery of love and death live thou and die. Thus shall his laughter be thrilled through with ecstasy. Commentary: the title is explained in the note. The chapter needs no explanation. It is a definite point of view of life, and recommends a course of action calculated to rob the creator of his cruel sport. Note 18. This chapter was written to clarify of which it was the origin. Brother Perdurabo perceived this truth, or rather the first half of it, comedy at breakfast at Ocean qui fume. Chapter 37. Venus of Milo. Life is as ugly and necessary as the female body. Death is as beautiful and necessary as the male body. The soul is beyond male and female as it is beyond life and death. Even as the lingam and the yoni are but diverse developments of one organ, so also are life and death but two phases of one state. So also the absolute and the conditioned are but forms of that, what I love. There is no from, no being, to which I do not give myself wholly up. Take me, who will. Commentary. This chapter must be read in connection with chapters 1, 3, 4, 8, 15, 16, 18, 24, 28. The last sentence of paragraph 4 also connects with the first paragraph of chapter 26. The title Venus of Milo is an argument in support of paragraphs 1 and 2, it being evident from this statement that the female body becomes beautiful insofar as it approximates to the male. The female is to be regarded as having been separated from the male in order to reproduce the male in a superior form, the absolute and the conditions forming the one absolute. In the last two paragraphs, there is a justification of a practice which might be called sacred prostitution. In the common practice of meditation, the idea is to reject all impressions, but here is an opposite practice, very much more difficult, in which all are accepted. This cannot be done at all unless one is capable of making dhyana, at least on any conceivable thing, at a second's notice. Otherwise, the practice would only be ordinary mind-wandering. Chapter 38. The Star Sapphire. Let the adept be armed with his magic root, and provided with his mystic rose. In the center, let him give the LVX signs, or if he know them, if he will and dare do them, and can keep silent about them. The signs of NOX being the signs of Por, Ver, Puella, Mulier. Omit the sign I or then let him advance to the east, and make the holy hexagram, saying, Pater et Mater Unis Deus Ararita. Let him go round to the south, make the holy hexagram, and say, Mater et Filius Agnus Deus Ararita. Let him go round to the west, make the holy hexagram, and say, Filius et Filia Agnus Deus Ararita. Let him go round to the north, make the holy hexagram, and then say, Filia et Pater Agnus Deus Ararita. Let him then return to the center, and so to the center of all, making the rosy cross, as he may know how, saying, Areta Ararita. In this the signs shall be those of Set triumphant and of Baphomet. Also shall Set appear in the circle. Let him drink of the sacrament, and let him onicate the same. Then let him say, Omnia in duos, di unum, onuus in nihil. He nec quatur, nec omnia, nec duo, nec unius, nec nihil sunt. Gloria Patri et Matri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto externo et Spiritui Sancto interno ut erat est erit in secula seculorum sex in uno per nomen septem in uno ararerita. Let him then repeat the signs of LVX, but not the signs of NOX, for it is not he that shall arise the sign of Isis rejoicing. Commentary. The star sapphire corresponds with the star ruby of chapter 25, 36 being the square of 6, as 25 is a percent. This chapter gives the real and perfect ritual of the hexagram. It would be improper to comment further upon an official ritual of the AA. Chapter 39. Dragons. Thought is the shadow of the eclipse of Luna. Samadhi is the shadow of the eclipse of Sol. Both eclipses are darkness, both are exceeding rare. The universe itself is light. Commentary: dragons are in the east, supposed to cause eclipses by devouring the luminaries. There may be some significance in the chapter number, which is that of Jechida, the highest unity of the soul. In this chapter, the idea is given that all limitation and evil is an exceedingly rare accident. There can be no night in the whole of the solar system, except in rare spots where the shadow of a planet is cast by itself. It is a serious misfortune that we happen to live in a tiny corner of the system where the darkness reaches such a high figure as 50%. The same is true of moral and spiritual conditions. Chapter 40. Lambskin, Cowan, Skidoo, Tile, Swear-to-Heal-all. This is the mystery. Life. Mind is the traitor. Slay mind, let the corpse of mind lie unburied on the edge of the great sea. Death. This is the mystery. Tile, Cowan, Skidoo. Commentary: this chapter will be readily intelligible to EA Freemasons, and it cannot be explained to others. Chapter 41. The Luby. Only Lubies find excellence in these words. It is thinkable that A is not A. To reverse this is but to revert to the normal. Yet by forcing the brain to accept propositions of which one set is absurdity, the other truism, a new function of brain is established. Vague and mysterious and all indefinite are the contents of this new consciousness, yet they are somehow vital. By use they become luminous. Unreason becomes experience. This lifts the leaden-footed soul to the experience of that of which reason is the blasphemy. But without the experience, these words are the lies of a luby. Yet a luby to thee, and a booby to me, a Balasius ruby to God, maybe. Commentary: the word luby occurs in folklore, and was supposed to be the author at the time of writing this book, which he did when he was far from any standard works of reference to connote partly booby, partly lout. It would thus be a similar word to Parsifal. Paragraphs 2 to 6 explain the method that was given in chapters 11 and 31. This method, however, occurs throughout the book on numerous occasions, and even in the chapter itself it is employed in the last paragraphs. Chapter 42. The Hemog. A red rose absorbs all colors but red. Red is therefore the one color that it is not. This law, reason, time, space, all limitation blinds us to the truth. All that we know of man, nature, God is just that which they are not. It is that which they throw off as repugnant. The Hemog is only visible insofar as he is imperfect. Then are they all glorious who seem not to be glorious. As the Hemog is all glorious within, it may be so. How then distinguish the inglorious and perfect Hemog from the inglorious man of earth? Distinguish not. But thyself extinguish. Hemog art thou, and Hemog shalt thou be. Commentary: paragraph 1 is of course a well-known scientific fact. In paragraph 2, it is suggested analogically that all thinkable things are similarly blinds for the unthinkable reality. Classing in this manner all things as illusions, the question arises as to the distinguishing between illusions. How are we to tell whether a wholly illuminated man of God is really so, since we can see nothing of him but his imperfections? It may be yonder beggar is a king, but these considerations are not to trouble such mind as the cello may possess. Let him occupy himself, rather, with the task of getting rid of his personality. This, and not criticism of his holy guru, should be the occupation of his days and nights. Note 19. Hemog is a notaricon of the words Holy Illuminated Man of God. Chapter 43. Corned Beef Hash. In VVV the great work perfect, therefore none is that pertineth not to VVVV. In any may he manifest, yet in one hath he chosen to manifest, and this one hath given his ring as a seal of authority to the work of the AA through the colleagues of Freire Perdurabod. But this concerns themselves and their administration. It concerneth none below the grade of exempt adept, and such an one only by Cornolso, since below the abyss reason is Lord, let men seek by experiment, and not by questionings. Commentary: the title is only partially explaining the note. It means that the statements in this reference chapter are to be understood in the most ordinary and commonplace way, without any mystical sense. V is the motto of a master of the temple, or so much he disclosed to the exempt adepts, referred to in Liber Legiae. It is he who is responsible for the whole of the development of the AAA path, movement which has been associated with the publication of the Equinox, and his utterance is enshrined in the sacred writings. It is useless to inquire into his nature. To do so leads to certain disaster. Authority from him is exhibited, when necessary, to the proper persons, though in no case to anyone below the grade of exempt adept. The person inquiring into such matters is politely requested to work, and not to ask questions about matters which in no way concern him. The number 41 is that of the barren mother. Note 20. That is food suitable for Americans. Chapter 44. Dust devils. In the wind of the mind arises the turbulence called at breaks. Down shower the barren thoughts. All life is choked. This desert is the abyss wherein the universe. The stars are but thistles in that waste. Yet this desert is but one spot accursed in a world of bliss. Now and again travelers cross the desert. They come from the great sea, and to the great sea they go. As they go, they spill water. One day they will irrigate the desert till it flowers. See, 5 footprints of a camel, VVVV commentary. This number 42 is the great number of the curse. See Liber 400 and the essay on the Kabbalah in the Temple of Solomon the King. This number is said to be all hodgepodge and accursed. The chapter should be read most carefully in connection with the 10th Aether. It is to that dramatic experience that it refers. The mind is called wind because of its nature. As has been frequently explained, the ideas and words are identical. In this free-flowing, centraless material arises an eddy, a spiral close coiled upon itself. The theory of the formation of the ego is that of the Hindus, whose ahamkara is itself a function of the mind, whose ego it creates. This ego is entirely divine. Zoroaster describes God as having the head of the hawk and a spiral force. It will be difficult to understand this chapter without some experience in the transvaluation of values, which occurs throughout the whole of this book in nearly every sentence. Transvaluation of values is only the moral aspect of the method of contradiction. The word turbulence is applied to the ego to suggest the French tourbillon, whirlwind, the false ego, or dust devil. True life, the life, which has no consciousness of I, is said to be choked by this false ego, or rather by the thoughts which its explosions produce. In paragraph 4, this is expanded to a macrocosmic plane. The masters of the temple are now introduced. They are inhabitants, not of this desert. Their abode is not this universe. They come from the great sea Bina, the city of the pyramids. VV vindicated as one of these travelers. He is described as a camel, not because of the connotation of the French form of this word, but because camel is in Hebrew Gemul, and Jumel is the path leading from Tiferet to Kether, uniting microprosopus and macroprosopus. That is performing the great work. The card Gimel in the tarot is the high priestess, the lady of initiation. One might even say, the holy guardian angel. Chapter 45. Mulberry tops, black blood upon the altar, and the rustle of angel wings above, black blood of the sweet fruit, the bruised, the violated bloom that setteth the wheel a-spinning in the spire. Death is the veil of life, and life of death, for both are God's. This is that which is written, a feast for life and a greater feast for death. In the book of the law, the blood is the life of the individual. Offer then blood. Commentary. The title of this chapter refers to a Hebrew legend, that of the prophet who heard a going in the mulberry tops, and to Browning's phrase, a bruised, black-blooded mulberry. In the world's tragedy, Household Gods, the scorpion, and also the God-eater, the reader may study the efficacy of rape and the sacrifice of blood as magical formulae. Blood and virginity have always been the most acceptable offerings to all the gods, but especially the Christian God. In the last paragraph, the reason of this is explained. It is because such sacrifices come under the great law of the rosy cross, the giving up of the individuality, as has been explained as nauseam in previous chapters. We shall frequently recur to this subject. By the wheel spinning in the spire is meant the manifestation of magical force, the spermatozoon and the conical phallus. For wheels, see chapter 78. Chapter 46. The mass of the phoenix, the magician, his breast bare, stands before an altar on which are his burin, bell, thurible, and 2 of the cakes of light. In the sign of the enterer, he reaches west across the altar and cries, "Hail, Ra, that goest in thy bark into the caverns of the darkle." He gives the sign of silence, and takes the bell and fire in his hands. East of the altar, see me stand with light and music in mine hand. He strikes 11 times upon the bell, 333 to 555 to 33, and places the fire in the thurible. I strike the bell, I light the flame, I utter the mysterious name. Abrahabra, he strikes 11 times upon the bell. Now I begin to pray. Thou child, holy thy name and undefiled. Thy reign is come. Thy will is done. Here is the bread, here is the blood. Bring me through midnight to the sun. Save me from evil and from good, that thy one crown of all the 10, even now and here be mine. Amen. He puts the first cake on the fire of the thurible. I burn the incense cake, proclaim these adorations of thy name. He makes them as in liber legis, and strikes again 11 times upon the bell. With the burin he then makes upon his breast the proper sign. Behold this bleeding breast of mine, gashed with the sacramental sign. He puts the second cake to the wound. I stanch the blood. The wager soaks it up, and the high priest invokes. He eats the second cake. This bread I eat. This oath I swear, as I inflame myself with prayer. There is no grace, there is no guilt. This is the law. Do what thou wilt. He strikes 11 times upon the bell, and cries Abrahabra. I entered in with woe. With mirth I now go forth, and with thanksgiving, to do my pleasure on the earth among the legions of the living. He goeth forth. Commentary. This is the special number of Horus. It is the Hebrew blood, and the multiplication of the 4 by the 11, the number of magic, explains 4, in its finest sense. But see in particular the accounts in Equinox the first 7 of the circumstances of the equinox of the gods. The word phoenix may be taken as including the idea of pelican, the bird, which is fabled to feeds it, young from the blood of its own breast. Yet the 2 ideas, though cognate, are not identical, and phoenix is the more accurate symbol. This chapter is explained in chapter 62. It would be improper to comment further upon a ritual which has been accepted as official by the Chapter 47. Chinese music. Explain this happening. It must have a natural cause. Let these 2 asses be set to grind corn. Should probably, maybe, we may safely assume. It is hardly questionable. Almost certainly poor hacks, let them be turned out to grass. Proof is only possible in mathematics, and mathematics is only a matter of arbitrary conventions. And yet doubt is a good servant, but a bad master. A perfect mistress, but a nagging wife. White is the lash of the overseer. White is black is the watchword of the slaves. The master takes no heed. The Chinese cannot help thinking that the octave has 5 notes. The more necessary anything appears to my mind, the more certain it is that I only assert a limitation. I slept with faith and found a corpse in my arms on awaking. I drank and danced all night with doubt and found her a virgin in the morning. Commentary. The title of this chapter is drawn from paragraph 7. We now, for the first time, attack the question of doubt. The soldier and the hunchback should be carefully studied in this connection. The attitude recommended is skepticism, but a skepticism under control. Doubt inhibits action as much as faith binds it. All the best popes have been atheists, but perhaps the greatest of them once remarked, Quantum nobis prodest haec fabula Christi. The ruler asserts facts as they are. The slave has therefore no option but to deny them passionately in order to express his discontent. Hence such absurdities as liber egalite fraternite, in God we trust, and the like. Similarly, we find people asserting today that woman is superior to man, and that all men are born equal. The master, in technical language, the magus, does not concern himself with facts. He does not care whether a thing is true or not. He uses truth and falsehood indiscriminately to serve his ends. Slaves consider him immoral and preach against him in Hyde Park. In paragraphs 7 and 8, we find a most important statement, a practical aspect of the fact that all truth is relative, And in the last paragraph, we see how skepticism keeps the mind fresh, whereas faith dies in the very sleep that it induces. Chapter 48, Buttons and Rosettes. The cause of sorrow is the desire of the one to the many, or of the many to the one. This also is the cause of joy. But the desire of one to another is all of sorrow. Its birth is hunger, and its death satiety. The desire of the moth for the star at least saves him satiety. Hunger, thou man, for the infinite. Be insatiable even for the finite. Thus at the end shalt thou devour the finite, and become the infinite. Be thou more greedy than the shark, more full of yearning than the wind among the pines. The weary pilgrim struggles on. The satiated pilgrim stops. The road winds uphill. All law, all nature must be overcome. Do this by virtue of that in thyself, before which law and nature are but shadows. Commentary. The title of this chapter is best explained by a reference to Mistinguett and Mayol. It would be hard to decide, and it is fortunately unnecessary even to discuss, whether the distinction of their art is the cause-result or concomitant of their private peculiarities. The fact remains that in vice, as in everything else, some things satiate, others refresh. Any game in which perfection is easily attained soon ceases to amuse, although in the beginning its fascination is so violent. Witness the tremendous but transitory vogue of ping-pong and diabolo. Those games in which perfection is impossible never cease to attract. The lesson of the chapter is thus always to rise hungry from a meal, always to violate on its own nature, keep on acquiring a taste for what is naturally repugnant. This is an unfailing source of pleasure, and it has a real further advantage in destroying the sankharas, which, however good in themselves, relatively to other sankharas, are yet barriers upon the path. They are modifications of the ego, and therefore those things which bar it from the absolute. Chapter 49, Windmill Words. Asana gets rid of anatomy consciousness. Involuntary pranayama gets rid of physiology. Breaks mesyama. And niyama get rid of voluntary ethical consciousness. Breaks pratyahara gets rid of the objective. Dharana gets rid of the subjective. Dhyana gets rid of the ego. Samadhi gets rid of the soul impersonal. Asana destroys the static body, nama pranayama, destroys the dynamic body, rupapa. Yama destroys the emotions. Gaya niyama destroys the passions. Dhyana destroys the perceptions. Sana dhyana destroys the tendencies. Sankara. Samadhi destroys the consciousness. Vinanam, Homard, Aleister Mador destroys. The last of these facts is the one of which I am most certain. Commentary. The allusion in the title is not quite clear, though it may be connected with the penultimate paragraph. The chapter consists of 2 points of view from which to regard yoga, 2 odes upon a distant prospect of the temple of Madura, 2 elegies on a mat of kusha grass. The penultimate paragraph is introduced by way of repose. Cynicism is a great cure for overstudy. There is a great deal of cynicism in this book, in one place and another. It should be regarded as Angostura bitters to brighten the flavor of a discourse which were else too sweet. It prevents one from slopping over into sentimentality. Chapter 50, Mome Wraths. The early bird catches the worm, and the 12-year-old prostitute attracts the ambassador. Neglect not the dawn meditation. The first plover's eggs fetch the highest prices. The flower of virginity is esteemed by the panda. Neglect not the dawn meditation. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy and wealthy and wealthy and well. But late to watch and early to pray brings him across the abyss, they say. Neglect not the dawn meditation. Commentary. This chapter is perfectly simple and needs no comment whatsoever. Note 22. The Mome Wraths, outgrave, Lewis Carroll. But mome is Parisian slang for a young girl, and rathoe for early. Chapter 51, Warata Blossoms. 7 are the veils of the dancing girl in the harem of it. 7 are the names, and 7 are the lamps beside her bed. 7 eunuchs guard her with drawn swords. No man may come nigh unto her. In her wine cup are 7 streams of the blood of the 7 spirits of God. 7 are the heads of the beast whereon she, the head of an angel, the head of a saint, the head of a poet, the head of an adulterous woman, the head of a man of valor, the head of a eye, and the head of a lion serpent. 7 letters hath her holiest name, and on upon this page is the sigil of Babylon. This is the seal upon the ring that is on the forefinger of it, and it is the seal upon the tombs of them whom she hath slain. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of Our Lady, for it is the number of a woman, and her number is 156. Commentary 49 is the square. 7 is 7 in number. The chapter should be read in connection with chapter 31, for it now reappears. The chapter heading, the Warata, is a voluptuous scarlet flower, common in Australia, and this connects the chapter with chapters 28 and 29. But this is only an illusion, for the subject of the chapter is Our Lady Babylon, who is conceived as the feminine counterpart of it. This does not agree very well with the common or orthodox theogony of chapter 11, but it is to be explained by the dithyrambic nature of the chapter. In paragraph 3, no man is, of course, Nemo, the master of the temple. Liber 418 will explain most of the allusions in this chapter. In paragraphs 5 and 6, the author frankly identifies himself with the beast referred to in the book, and in the Apocalypse, and in Liber Legis. In paragraph 6, the word angel may refer to his mission, and the word lion serpent to the skull of his ascending decan. Teth equals snake, equals spermatozoon, and Leo in the zodiac, which like Teth itself has the snake form. Data first written son equals Elengamiel and Saul. Paragraph 7 explains the theological difficulty referred to above. There is only one symbol, but this symbol has many names. Of those names, Babylon is the oldest. It is the name referred to in Liber Legals 1:22. It will be noticed that the figure or skull of Babylon is a seal upon a ring, and this ring is upon the forefinger of it. This identifies further the symbol with itself. It will be noticed that this seal, except for the absence of a border, is the official seal of the AA, compare chapter 3. It is also said to be the seal upon the tombs of them that she hath slain, that is, of the masters of the temple. In connection with the number 49, see Liber 418, the 22nd Aether, as well as the usual authorities. Chapter 52. The vigil of St. Hubert in the forest God met the stag beetle. Hold, worship me, quoth God, for I am all great, all good, all wise. The stars are but sparks from the forges of my smith. Yea, verily, and amen, said the stag beetle. All this do I believe, and that devoutly. Then why do you not worship me? Because I am real, and you are only imaginary. But the leaves of the forest rustled with the laughter of the wind, said wind and wood. They neither of them know anything, commentary saint. Hubert appears to have been a saint who saw a stag of a mystical or sacred nature. The stag beetle must not be identified with the one in chapter 16. It is a merely literary touch. The chapter is a resolution of the universe into tetragrammaton, God the macrocosm and the microcosm beetle. Both imagine themselves to exist. Both say you and I and discuss their relative reality. The things which really exist, the things which have no ego, and speak only in the third person, regard these as ignorant on account of their assumption of knowledge. Chapter 53. Tarry your work, doubt thyself. Doubt even if thou doubtest thyself. Doubt all. Doubt even if thou doubtest all. It seems sometimes as if beneath all conscious doubt there lay some deepest certainty. Kill it. Slay the snake. The horn of the doubt goat be exalted, dive deeper, ever deeper into the abyss of mind, until thou unearth the fox that on hounds, yokes, Talio, bring that to bay. Then whine the more. Commentary. The number 51 means failure and pain, and its subject is appropriately doubt. The title of the chapter is borrowed from the health-giving and fascinating sport of fox hunting, which Frater Perdurabo followed in his youth. This chapter should be read in connection with the soldier and the hunchback, of which it is in some sort an epitome. Its meaning is sufficiently clear, but in paragraphs 6 and 7 it will be noticed that the identification of the soldier with the hunchback has reached such a pitch that the symbols are interchanged, enthusiasm being represented as the sinuous snake, skepticism as the goat of the Sabbath, In other words, a state is reached in which destruction is as much joy as creation, compare chapter 46. Beyond that is a still deeper state of mind, which is that chapter 54. The bull baiting, 11 books, wrote I, in each did I expound the great work fully from the beginning even unto the end thereof. Then at last came certain men unto me, saying, Master, expound thou the great work unto us, Master. And I held my peace. Generation of gossipers, who shall deliver you from the wrath that is fallen upon you? Babblers, prattlers, talkers, loquacious ones, tattlers, chewers of the red rag that inflameth Apis, the Redeemer, to fury. Learn first what is work, and the great work is not so far beyond. Commentary 52 is BN, the number of the sun. Osiris Apis, the Redeemer, with whom the Master Frappi identifies himself. He permits himself for a moment the pleasure of feeling his wounds, and turning upon his generation, gores it with his horns. The 11 books do not, we think, refer to the 91 chapters of this little masterpiece, or even to the numerous volumes he has penned, but rather to the fact that 91 is the number of Amen, implying the completeness of his work. In the last paragraph is a paranomasia. To chew the red rag is a phrase for to talk aimlessly and persistently, while it is notorious that a red cloth will excite the rage of a bull. Chapter 55. The dowser, once round the meadow. Brother, does the hazel twig dip? Twice round the orchard. Brother, does the hazel twig dip? Thrice round the paddock. Highly, lowly, wildly, holy, dip, dip, dip. Then neighed the horse in the paddock and loll its wings. For whoso flendeth the spring beneath the earth, maketh the treaters of earth to course the heavens. This spring is threefold, of water, but also steel, and of the seasons. Also, this paddock is the toad that hath the jewel between his eyes, O Manal Padman. Keep us from evil. Commentary. A dowser is one who practices divination, usually with the object of finding water or minerals by means of the vibrations of a hazel twig. The meadow represents the flower of life, the orchard its fruit. The paddock, being reserved for animals, represents life itself. That is to say, the secret spring of life is found in the place of life, with the result that the horse, who represents ordinary animal life, becomes the divine horse Pegasus. In paragraph 6, we see this spring identified with the phallus, for it is not only a source of water, but highly elastic, while the reference to the seasons alludes to the well-known lines of the late Lord Tennyson. In the spring, a livelier iris changes on the burnished dove. In the spring, a young man's fancy lightly turns to thoughts of love. Locksley Hall. In paragraph 7, the place of life, the universe of animal souls, is identified with the toad, which ugly and venomous wears yet a precious jewel in his head, Romeo and Julieta's jewel, being the divine spark in man, and indeed in all that lives and moves and has its being. Note this phrase, which is highly significant. The word lives excluding the mineral kingdom, the word moves the vegetable kingdom, and the phrase has its being the lower animals. Including this toad and jewel are further identified with the lotus and jewel of the well-known Buddhist phrase, and this seems to suggest that this toad is the yoni. The suggestion is further strengthened by the concluding phrase in brackets. Keep us from evil, since, although it is the place of life, the means of grace, it may be ruinous. Chapter 56. Eavesdroppings. 15 fellow craftsmen out of work. 3 master masons out of work. All these sat on their haunches, waiting the report of the sojourner, for the word was lost. This is the report of the sojourners. The word was love, 23, and its number is 111. Then said each amo, 24 for its number is 100. Each took the trowel from his lap, 25, whose number is 111. Each called moreover on the goddess Nina, 26, for her number is 111. Yet with all this went the work awry, for the word of the law is commentary. The title of this chapter refers to the duty of the tiler in a blue lodge of Freemasons. The numbers in paragraphs 1 to 3 are significant. Each master mason is attended by 5 fellow crafts, and each fellow craft by 3 apprentices, as if the masters were sitting in pentagrams, and the fellow craftsmen in triangles. This may refer to the number of manual signs in each of these degrees. The moral of the chapter is apparently that the mother letter Aleph is an inadequate solution of the great problem. A lift is identified with the yoni, for all the symbols connected with it in this place are feminine, but Yalef is also a number of samadhi and mysticism, and the doctrine is therefore that magic, in that highest sense explained in the Book of the Law, is the truer key. Notes 23, L equals 30, 0 equals 70, V equals 6, E equals 5 equals LL, 24 LM equals 40, 0 equals 70, 11, 25. The trowel is shaped like a diamond or yoni. L equals 30, A equals LP equals 80 equals LLL 26, N equals 50, 1 equals 10, N equals 50, A equals LL. Chapter 57, The Drooping Sunflower. The one thought vanished. All my mind was torn to rags. Nay, my head was mashed into wood pulp, and there on the Daily newspaper was wrote I, since my one love was torn from me. I cannot work, I cannot think. I seek distraction here, I seek distraction there, but this is all my truth, that I who love have lost. And how may I regain? I must have money to get to America. Mage, sage, gauge thy wage, or in the page of thine age is written rage. My darling, we should not have spent £90 in that 3 weeks in Paris. Slash the brakes on thine arm with a pole. Commentary. The number 55 refers to Malkuth, the ride. It should then be read in connection with chapters 28, 29, 49. The drooping sunflower is the heart which needs the divine light. Since Jivatma was separated from Paramana, as in paragraph 2, not only is the divine unity destroyed, but death, instead of being the child of Chokma and Bina, becomes the abyss and the Kalifo, the rut. The only sense which abides is that of loss, and the craving to retrieve it. In paragraph 3, it is seen that the is impossible, owing, paragraph 4, to his not having made proper arrangements to recover the original position previous to making the divisions. In paragraph 5, it is shown that this is because of allowing enjoyment to cause forgetfulness of the really important thing. Those who allow themselves to wallow in samadhi are sorry for it afterwards. The last paragraph indicate the precautions to be taken to avoid this. The number 90 as the last paragraph is not merely fact, but symbolism, 90 being the number of Zadi, the star, looked at in its exoteric sense as a naked woman playing by a stream surrounded by birds and butterflies. The poleaxe is recommended instead of the usual razor as a more vigorous weapon. One cannot be too severe in checking any faltering in the work, any digression from the path. Chapter 58, Trouble with Twins, Holy, 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 unto 555 times. Holy be Our Lady of the Stars, Holy, Holy, unto 156 times. Holy be Our Lady that rideth upon the beast. Holy, 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 unto the number of times necessary and appropriate, be Our Lady Isis in her millions of names, all Mother Genet Rixmitrix. Yet holier than all these to me is Layla, night and death. For her do I blaspheme alike the finite and the infinite. So wrote not Frater Perdurabo, but the imp Crowley in his name. For forgery let him suffer penal servitude for 7 years, or at least let him do pranayama all the way home. Nay, but to the house of the harlot whom he loveth not. For it is Layla that he loveth, and yet who knoweth which is Crowley, and which is Frater Perdurabo. Commentary, the number of the chapter refers to Liber Legis 524, for paragraph 1 refers to Nuit. The twins in the title are those mentioned in paragraph 5555 is had spelt in full. 156 is Babylon. In paragraph 4 is the gist of the chapter, Layla being again introduced, as in chapters 28, 29, 49, and 55. The exoteric blasphemy. It is hinted, the last paragraph, may be an esoteric arcanum. For the master of the temple is interested in Malkuth, as Malkuth is in Bina. Also Malkuth is in Kether, and Kether in Malkuth. And to the ipsissimus dissolution in the body of Nuit, and a visit to a brothel may be identical. Chapter 59. The duck-billed platypus. Dirt is matter in the wrong place. Thought is mind in the wrong place. Matter is mind. So thought is dirt. Thus argued he, wise one, not mindful. For not until the place is perfected by a tea saith he placet, the rose uncrucified droppeth its petals, Without the rose, the cross is a dry stick. Worship then the rosy cross and the mystery of two in one. And worship him that swore by his holy tea that one should not be one except in so far as it is two. I am glad that Layla is afar, no doubt clouds love. Commentary. The title of the chapter suggests the two in one. Since the ornithorhynchus is both bird and beast, it is also an Australian animal, like Layla herself, and was doubtless chosen for this reason. This chapter is an apology for the universe. Paragraphs 1 to 3 repeat the familiar arguments against reason in an epigrammatic form. Paragraph 4 alludes to Liber Legis 52. Place implies space, denies homogeneity to space. But when place is perfected by T, as it were, yoni by lingam, we get the word placid, meaning it pleases. Paragraph 6 and 7 explain this further. It is necessary to separate things, in order that they might rejoice in uniting. See Liber Legis the Furry, 28 to 30, which is paraphrased in the penultimate paragraph. In the last paragraph, this doctrine is interpreted in common life by a paraphrase of the familiar and beautiful proverb, absence makes the heart grow fonder. CSI seem to get a subtle aftertaste of bitterness. It is to be observed that the philosopher, having first committed the syllogistic error quaternus terminorum, in attempting to reduce the terms to 3, staggers into non-distributia medi. It is possible that considerations with Sir W. Hamilton's qualification, or quantification, of the predicate may be taken as intervening, but to do so would render the humor of the chapter too subtle for the average reader in Oshkosh, for whom this book is evidently written. Chapter 60, Haggai Howlings. Think it laughter, ha ha ha. There is nothing movable or immovable under the firmament of heaven, on which I may write the symbols of the secret of my soul. Yea, though I were lowered by ropes into the utmost caverns and vaults of eternity, there is no word to express even the first whisper of the initiator in mine ear. Yea, I abhor birth, ululating lamentations of night. Agony, agony! The light within me breeds veils. The song within be dumbness. God, in what prism may any man analyze my light? Immortal are the adepts, and ye die. They die a shame unspeakable. They die as the gods die for sorrow. Wilt thou endure unto the end, Frater Perdurabo, lamp in the abyss? Thou hast the keystone of the royal arch. Yet the apprentices, instead of making bricks, put the straws in their hair and think they are Jesus Christ. Sublime tragedy and comedy of the great work. Commentary. Haggai, a notorious Hebrew prophet, is a second officer in a chapter of the Royal Arch Masons. In this chapter, the author, in a sort of raging eloquence, bewails his impotence to express himself, or to induce others to follow into the light. In paragraph 1, he explains the sardonic laughter, for which he is justly celebrated as being in reality the expression of this feeling. Paragraph 2 is a reference to the obligation of an entered apprentice mason. Paragraph 3 refers to the ceremony of exaltation in Royal Arch Masonry. The initiate will be able to discover the most formidable secret of that degree concealed in the paragraph. Paragraphs 4 to 6 express an anguish to which that of Gethsemane and Golgotha must appear like willows. In paragraph 7, the agony is broken up by the sardonic or cynical laughter to which we have previously alluded. And the final paragraph, in the words of the noblest simplicity, praises the great work, rejoices in its sublimity in the supreme art, in the intensity of the passion and ecstasy which it brings forth. Note that the words passion and ecstasy may be taken as symbolical of yoni and lingam. Chapter 61. The tailless monkey, when Asticus sees crab and lobster rise. Man that has spine and hopes of heaven to be lacks the amoeba's immortality. What protoplasm gains in mobile mirth is loss of the stability of earth. Matter and sense and mind have had their day. Nature presents the bill, and all must pay. If, as I were free to choose, how Buddhahood would battle with the booze, my certainty that destiny is good rest on its picking me for Buddhahood. Were I a drunkard, I should think I had good evidence that fate was bloody bad. Commentary. The title is a euphemism for Homo sapiens. The crab and the lobster are higher types of crustaceae than the crayfish. The chapter is a short essay in poetic form on determinism. It hymns the great law of equilibrium and compensation, but cynically criticizes all philosophers, hinting that their view of the universe depends on their own circumstances. The sufferer from toothache does not agree with Dr. Pangloss that all is for the best in the best of all possible worlds, nor does the wealthiest of our dukes complain to his cronies that times is cruel hard. Chapter 62. The wound of Amfortas, the self-mastery of Percival became the self-masturbary of the bourgeois. The qualities which have made a man, a race, a city, a caste must be thrown off. Death is the penalty of failure, as it is written, "In the hour of success sacrifice that which is dearest to thee unto the infernal gods." The Englishman lives upon the excrement of his forefathers. All moral codes are worthless in themselves. Yet in every new code there is hope, provided always that the code is not changed, because it is too hard, but because if is fulfilled. The dead dog floats with the stream. In Puritan France, the best women are harlots. In vicious England, the best women are virgins. If only the Archbishop of Canterbury were to go make in the street and beg his bread. The new Christ, like the old, is the friend of publicans and sinners, because his nature is ascetic. Oh, if every man did no matter what, provided that it is the one thing that he will not and cannot do, commented. The title is explained in the note. The number of the chapter may refer to the letter Samek, temperance, in the tarot. Paragraph 1. The real chastity of Percival or Parsifal, a chastity which did not prevent his dipping the point of the sacred lance into the Holy Grail, is distinguished from its misinterpretation by modern crapulence. The priests of the gods were carefully chosen and carefully trained to fulfill the sacrament of fatherhood. The shame of sex consists in the usurpation of its function by the unworthy. Sex is a sacrament. The word virtues means the quality of manhood. Modern virtue is the negation of all such qualities. In paragraph 3, however, we see the penalty of conservatism. Children must be weaned. In the penultimate paragraph, the words "the new Christ" alluded to the author. In the last paragraph, we reach the sublime mystic doctrine that whatever you have must be abandoned. Obviously, that which differentiates your consciousness from the absolute is part of the content of that consciousness. Note 27, chapter so-called because Amfortas was wounded by his own spear, the spear that had made him king. Chapter 63. The fool's not. Fool, begetter of both I and naught, resolve not ye not. 0, I, this I, and 0, I only 0. For I, I, to Nibbana, so 8. 28. 1 P, the dissolution of the house of God for P, comes after O after A, and that triumphs over Aleph in Ain. That is 0, 29, opos, the work, the opening of the eye. 30. Thou naughty boy, thou openest the eye of Horus to the blind eye that weeps. 31. The upright one, thine uprightness, rejoiceth death to all fishes. 32. Commentary, the number of this chapter, refers to the Hebrew word ain, the negative ani, 61. The fool is the fool of the tarot, whose number is 0, but refers the letter aleph, 1, 2. A fool's snot is a kind of knot, which, although it has the appearance of a knot, is not really a knot, but pulls out immediately. The chapter consists of a series of complicated puns on one, an eye with regard to their shape, sound, and that of the figures which resemble them in shape. Paragraph 1 calls upon the fool of the tarot, who is to be referred to ipsis to the pure fool, Parsifal, to resolve this problem. The word not D suggests not only that the problem is sexual, but does not really exist. Paragraph 2 shows the lingam and yoni as, in conjunction, the foundation of ecstasy I, and of the complete symbol I-A-O. The latter sentence of the paragraph unites the two meanings of giving up the lingam to the yoni, and the ego to the absolute. This idea, I must give up I-O, is naturally completed by I pay, and the sound of the word pay suggests the Hebrew letter P-A, see Libresex, the final dissolution in Shivadarshana. I Hebrew, the letter which follows is P-I, therefore follows Ayin, the DV of the tarot. Ayin is spelt Ainus, replacing the A in Ayin by an 0, the letter of the devil, or Pan, the phallic god. Now, Ain means nothing, and thus the replacing of Ain by Oin means the completion of the yoni by the lingam. which is followed by the complete dissolution symbolized in the letter P. These letters, P, are then seen to be the root of opus, the Latin word for work, in this case the great work, and they also begin the word opening. In Hindu philosophy, it is said that Shiva, the destroyer, is asleep, and that when he opens his eye, the universe is destroyed, another synonym, therefore, for the accomplishment of the great work. But the eye of Shiva is also his lingam. Shiva is himself the Mahalingam, which unites these symbolisms: the opening of the eye, the ejaculation of the lingam, the destruction of the universe, the accomplishment of the great work. All these are different ways of saying the same thing. The last paragraph is even obscurer to those unfamiliar to the masterpiece referred to in the note. For the eye of Horus, see 770, Colonel Tunning, line 10, the blind eye that weeps is a poetic Arab name for the lingam. The doctrine is that the great work should be accomplished without creating an udu karma. For the letter N, the fish, the vesica, the womb, breeds, whereas the eye of Horus does not, or if it does so, breeds, according to Turkish tradition. Amiyasaya, death implies resurrection. The illusion is reborn, as the scythe of death in the tarot has a crosspiece. This is in connection with the Hindu doctrine, expressed in their injunction, fry your seeds. Act so as to balance your past karma and create no new, so that, as it were, the books are balanced. While you have either a credit or a debit, you are still in account with the universe. N.B. Frater Pete wrote this chapter 61 while dining with friends in about a minute and a half. That is how you must know the Kabbalah. Note 28, OE equals island, a common symbol of Nibbana. 29, Advayadegan. 30, seal of Shiva. 31, compare Bag I Muadar for all this symbolism. 32, death equals none. The letter before 0 means a fish, a symbol of Christ, and also by its shape, the female principle. Chapter 64, twig. The phoenix had a bell for sound, fire for sight, a knife for touch, 2 cakes, one for touch, the other for smell. He standeth before the altar of the universe at sunset when earth life fades. He summons the universe and crowns it with magic light to replace the sun of natural light. He prays unto and give homage to Rohorquit. To him he then sacrifices. The first cake, burnt, illustrates the prophet drawn from the scheme of incarnation. The second, mixed with his life's blood and eaten, illustrates the use of the lower life to feed the higher life. He then takes the oath and becomes free on condition, the absolute, burning up by the flame of his prayer and born again the phoenix. Commentary. This chapter is itself a comment on chapter 44. Note 33, twig. Equals dost thou understand? Also the phoenix takes twigs to kindle the fire in which it burns itself. Chapter 65, Marjorie Daw. I love Layla. I lack Layla. Where is the mystic grace? Sayest thou, who told thee, man, that Layla is not Nuit, and I destroyed all things, they are reborn in other shapes. I gave up all for one. This one hath given up its unity for all. I wrenched dog backwards to find God. Now God barks, think me not fallen, because I love Layla and lack Layla. I am the master of the universe. Then give me a heap of straw in a hut, and Layla naked. Commentary. This chapter returns to the subject of Layla, and to the subject already discussed in chapters 3 and others, particularly chapter 56. The title of the chapter refers to the old rhyme, Seesaw Marjorie Daw sold her bed to lie upon straw. Was not she a silly slut to sell her bed to lie upon dirt? The word seesaw is significant, almost a comment upon this chapter. To the master of the temple, opposite rules apply. His unity seeks the many, and the many is again transmuted to the one. Solve et coagula. Chapter 66. Constancy. I was discussing oysters with a crony. God sent to me the angels Din and Doni, and man of spunk, they urged, would hardly choose to breakfast every day chez Lapperouse. No, I replied, H would not do so, but think of his woe if Lapperouse were shut. I eat these oysters, and I drink this wine solely to drown this misery of mine. Yet the last height of consolation's cold. Its pinnacle is not to be consoled. And though I sleep with Jane for and Eleanor and Julian, only fixes in my mind, even before feels better than behind. You are mercurial spirits, be so kind as to enable me to raise the wave. Put me in Layla's arms again. The act cursed, leaving me that, else ho may do his worst. Donnie and Din, perceiving me inspired, conceived their task was finished. They retire. I turned upon my friend and, breaking bounds, borrowed a trifle of 200 pounds. Commentary: 64 is the number of Mercury, and of the intelligence of that planet, Din and Donnie. The moral of the chapter is that one wants liberty, although one may not wish to exercise it. The author would readily die in defense of the right of Englishmen to play football, or of his own right not to play it. As a great poet has expressed it, we don't want to fight, but by jingo, if we do. This is his meaning towards his attitude to complete freedom of speech and action. He refuses to listen to the ostensible, criticise the spirits, and explains his own position. Their real mission was to rouse him to confidence and action. Chapter 67, Secchi Transiat. At last I lifted up mine eyes and beheld, and lo, the flames of violet were become as tendrils of smoke, as mist at sunset upon the marshlands. And in the midst of the moon pool of silver was the lily of white and gold. In this lily is all honey, in this lily that flowereth at the midnight. In this lily is all perfume, in this lily is all music. And it enfolded me. Thus the disciples that watched found a dead body kneeling at the altar. Amen. Commentary: 65 is the number of Adonai, the holy guardian angel. See Liber 65, Liber Conxum Pax, and other works of reference. The chapter title means, so may he pass away, the blank obviously referring to Nemo. The moon pool of silver is a path of Jimmo leading from Tifereth to Kether. The flames of violet are the Ajna Chakra. The lily itself is Kether, the lotus of the Sahasrara. Lily is spelt with a capital to connect with Layla. Chapter 68. The Praying Mantis. Say God is one. This I obeyed. For 1,001 times a night for 1,000 nights, and one did I affirm the unity. But night only means Layla, 34, and unity and God are not worth even her blemishes. Allah is only 66. But Layla counteth up to 7 and 70, 35, yea. The night shall cover all, the night shall cover all. Commentary: 66 is the number of Allah. The praying mantis is a blasphemous grasshopper which caricatures the pious. The chapter recurs to the subject of Layla, whom the author exalts above God, in continuation of the reasonings given in chapter 56 and 63. She is identified with NOx by the quotation from Liber 65. Notes: 34. Layla is the Arabic for night. 35. LH equals 1 plus 30 plus 30 plus 66. L plus A plus I plus L plus A plus H equals 77, which also gives NSL. The influence of the highest, Adi, Adot, and so on. Chapter 69, Sodom Apples. I have bought pleasant trifles, and thus soothed my lack of Layla. Light is my wallet, and my heart is also light, and yet I know that the clouds will gather closer for the false clearing. The mirage will fade, then will the desert be thirsty. Then before, ye who dwell in the dark night of the soul, beware most of all of every herald of the dawn. Ye who dwell in the city of the pyramids beneath the night of Pan, remember that ye shall see no more light, but that of the great fire that shall consume your dust to ashes. Commentary: this chapter means that it is useless to try to abandon the great work. You may occupy yourself for a time with other things, but you only increase your bitterness, rivet the chains still on your feet. Paragraph 4 is a practical counsel to mystics not to break up their dryness by relaxing their austerities. The last paragraph will only be understood by masters of the temple. Chapter 70, Mana. At 4 o'clock there is hardly anybody in Rumpelmayr. I have my choice of place and service. The babble of the apes will begin soon enough. Pioneers, pioneers! Sat no Elijah under the juniper tree and wept? Was not Mohammed forsaken in Mecca, and Jesus in Gethsemane? These prophets were sad at heart, but the chocolate at Rumpelmayr is great, and the mouse Nuix is like Nephthys for perfection. Also, there are little meringues with cream and chestnut pulp, very velvety seductions. Sail I not toward Layla within 7 days? Be not sad at heart, prophet. The babble of the apes will presently begin. Nay, rejoice exceedingly, for after all the babble of the apes, the silence of the night. Commentary. Manna was a heavenly cake which, in the legend, fed the children of Israel in the wilderness. The author laments the failure of his mission to mankind, but comforts himself with the following reflections. 1. He enjoys the advantages of solitude. 2 previous prophets encountered similar difficulties in convincing their hearers. 3. Their food was not equal to that obtainable at Rumpelmeyer. S4. In a few days I am going to rejoin Layla. 5. My mission will succeed soon enough. 6. Death will remove the nuisance of success. Chapter 71. The way to succeed and the way to suck eggs. This is the holy hexagram. Plunge from the height god and interlock with man. Plunge from the height man and interlock with beast. The red triangle is the descending tongue of grace. The blue triangle is the ascending tongue of prayer. This interchange, the double gift of tongues, the word of double power, Abrahadabra, is the sign of the great work, for the great work is accomplished in silence. And behold, is not that word equal to Cheth, that is Cancer, whose sigil is Cancer? This work also eats up itself, accomplishes its own end, nourishes the worker, leaves no seed, is perfect in itself. Little children, love one another. Commentary. The key to the understanding of this chapter is given in the number in the title, the former being intelligible to all nations who employ Arabic figures, the latter only to experts in deciphering English puns. The chapter alludes to Levi's drawing of the hexagram and is a criticism of, or improvement upon it. In the ordinary hexagram, the hexagram of nature, the red triangle is upwards, like fire, and the blue triangle downwards, like water. In the magical hexagram, this is revered. The descending red triangle is that of Horus, a sign specially revealed by him personally at the equinox of the gods. It is the flame descending upon the altar and licking up the burnt offering. The blue triangle represents the aspiration, since blue is the color of devotion, and the triangle kinetically considered is the symbol of directed force. In the first 3 paragraphs, this formation of the hexagram is explained. It is a symbol of the mutual separation of the holy guardian angel and his client. Paragraph 4 explains in slightly different language what we have said above, and the scriptural image of tongues is introduced. In paragraph 5, the symbolism of tongues is further developed. Abrahadabra is our primal example of an interlocked word. We assume that the reader has thoroughly studied that word in Liber D, etc. The sigil of Cancer links up this symbolism with the number of the chapters. The remaining paragraphs continue the Gallic symbolism. Chapter 72, Broomstick Babblings. Frater Perdurabo is of the Sanhedrim of the Sabbath, say men. He is the old goat himself, say women. Therefore do all adore him. The more they detest him, the more do they adore him. Aye! Let us offer the obscene kiss. Let us seek the mystery of the gnarled oak and of the glacier torrent. To him let us offer our babes. Around him let us dance in the mad moonlight. But Frater Perdurabo is nothing but an eye. What eye? Skip, witches, hop toads, take your pleasure. For the play of the universe is the pleasure of Frater Perdurabo. Commentary. 70 is the number of the letter Ain, the devil in the tarot. The chapter refers to the witch's Sabbath, the description of which in Pay Night should be carefully read before studying this chapter. All the allusions will then be obvious, save those which we proceed to not. Sanhedrim, a body of 70 men. And I in Hebrew is Oin 70. The gnarled oak and the glacier torrent refer to the confessions made by many witches. Paragraph 7 has seen the meaning of the chapter. The obscene and distorted character of much of the universe is a whim of the Creator. Chapter 73. King's College Chapel. For mind and body alike there is no purgative like pranayama. No purgative like pranayama. For mind, for body, for mind and body alike. There is no purgative like pranayama. Pranayama. Yeah, for mind and body alike, there is no purgative for mind and body alike. No purgative, for mind and body alike. Purgative like pranayama, no purgative for mind and body alike, like pranayama. Like pranayama, like pranayama. 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 This chapter is a plain statement of fact, put in anthem form for emphasis. The title is due to the circumstances of the early piety of Frater Perdurabo, who was frequently refreshed by hearing the anthems in this chief of the architectural glories of his alma mater. Chapter 74. Hashed pheasant, Shamham Faraj, all hail divided name, utter at once, mortal overrash, the universe was swallowed up in flame. Shamham Faraj! Nor deem that thou amid the cosmic crash may find one thing of all those things the same. The world has gone to everlasting smash. No, if creation did possess an aim, it does not. It were only to make hash of that most high, and that most holy game, Shemham Farash. Commentary. There are 3 consecutive verses in the Pentateuch, each containing 12 letters. If these be written beneath each other, the middle verse bring reversed, that is, as in English, and divisions are then made vertically, 12 trilateral names are formed, the sum of which is tetragrammaton. This is the great and mysterious divided name. By adding the terminations Yod-He or Aleph-Lamed, the names of 12 angels are formed. The Hebrews say that by uttering this name, the universe is destroyed. This statement means the same as that of the Hindus, that the effective utterance of the name of Shiva would cause him to awake, and so destroy the universe. In Egyptian and Gnostic magic, we meet with pylons and eons which only open on the utterance of the proper word. In Mohammedan magic, we find a similar doctrine and practice, and the whole of mantra yoga has been built on this foundation. Thoth, the god of magic, is the inventor of speech. Christ is the logos. Lines 1 to 4 are now clear. In lines 501, we see the results of Shiva Darshana. Do not imagine that any single Ides, however high, however holy, or even however insignificant, can escape the destruction. The logician might say, but white exists, and if white is destroyed, it leaves black, yet black exists. Essa that, in that case, at least one known phenomenon of this universe is identical with one of that, vain word. The logician and his logic are alike involved in the lines 8 to 11, indicate that this fact is the essential one about Shiva Darshana. The title is explained by the intentionally blasphemous puns and colloquialisms of lines 9 and 10. Chapter 75. The devil, the ostrich, and the orphan child. Death rides the camel of initiation. 36. Thou humped and stiff-necked one that groanest in thine asana, death will relieve thee. Bite not, zealot or dear, but bide. 10 days didst thou go with water in thy belly? Thou shalt go 20 more with a firebrand at thy rump. Aye, all thine aspiration is to death. Death is the crown of all thine aspiration. Triple is the cord of silver moonlight. It shall hang thee, Holy One, hanged man, camel termination of the third person plural, for thy multiplicity, thou ghost of a non-ego. Could but thy mother behold thee, thou unt. 37. The infinite snake anana that surroundeth the universe is but the coffin worm. Commentary, the Hebrew letter Gimel adds up to 73. It means a camel. The title of the chapter is borrowed from the well-known lines of Rudyard Kipling, but the commissariat camel, when all is said and done, he's a devil and an A.W. Stridge and an orphan child in one. Paragraph 1 may imply a dogma of death as the highest form of initiation. Initiation is not a simple phenomenon. Any given initiation must take place on several planes, and is not always conferred on all of these simultaneously. Intellectual and moral perception of truth often, one might almost say usually, precedes spiritual and physical perceptions. One would be foolish to claim initiation unless it were complete on every plane. Paragraph 2 will easily be understood by those who have practiced asana. There is perhaps a sardonic reference to rigor mortis, and certainly one conceives the half-humorous attitude of the expert towards the beginner. Paragraph 3 is a comment in the same tone of rough good nature. The word zelator is used because the zelator of the AA has to pass an examination in asana before he becomes eligible for the grade of practicus. The 10 days allude merely to the tradition about the camel that he can go 10 days without water. Paragraph 4 identifies the reward of initiation with death. It is a cessation of all that we call life, in a way in which what we call death is not. 3. Sylv and the moon are all correspondences of Gimel, the letter of the aspiration, since Gimel is the path that leads from the microcosm in Tifereth to the macrocosm in Kether. The epithets are far too complex to explain in detail, but Mem, the hangman, has a close affinity for Gimel, as will be seen by a study of Liber 418. Unt is not only the Hindustani for camel, but the usual termination of the third person plural of the present tense of Latin words of the third and fourth conjugations. The reason for thus addressing the reader is that he has now transcended the first and second persons. Compare Liber itself, Chapter 3, VV 21-24, in Fitzgerald's Omar Khayyam. Some talk there was of thee and me, there seemed, and then no more of thee and me. The third person plural must be used, because he has now perceived himself to be a bundle of impressions. For this is the point on the path of Gimel when he is actually crossing the abyss. The student must consult the account of this given in the Temple of Solomon the King. The ego is but the ghost of a non-ego, the imaginary focus at which the non-ego becomes sensible. Paragraph 5 expresses the wish of the guru that his chellah may attain safely Abhina, the mother. Paragraph 6 whispers the ultimate and dread secret of initiation here, identifying the vastness of the most holy with the obscene worm that gnaws the bowels of the damned. Notes 36, death is said by the Arabs to ride a camel. The path of Gimel, which means a camel, leads from Tifereth to Kether, and its tarot trump is the high priestess, 37 on, Hindustani for camel. That is, would that Babylon might look on thee with favor. Chapter 76. Carey Street, when nothing became conscious, it made a bad bargain. This consciousness acquired individuality. A worse bargain. The hermit asked for love, worst bargain of all. And now he has let his girl go to America. To have success in life, blank loss. Is there no end to this immortal ache that haunts me sleeping or awake? If I had Layla, how could I forget time, age, and death? Were I an hermit, how could I support the pain of consciousness, the curse of thought? Even were I that, there still were one sore spot, the abyss, that stretches between that and not. Still, the first step is not so far away. The Mauritania sails on Saturday. Commentary. Carey Street is well known to prosperous Hebrews and poor Englishmen at the seat of the bankruptcy building. Paragraphs 1-4 are in prose, the downward course, and the rest of the chapter in poetry, the upward. The first part shows the fall from naught in 4 steps. The second part, the return. The details of this hierarchy have already been indicated in various chapters. It is quite conventional mysticism. Step 1, the illumination of Ein as Ein Sof Or. Step 2, the concentration of Ein Sof Or in Kether. Step 3, duality and the rest of it down to Malkuth. Step 4, the stooping of Malkuth to the Khalifa, and the consequent ruin of the tree of life. Part 2 show the impossibility of stopping on the path of adept ship. The final couplet represents the first step upon the path, which must be taken even, although the aspirant is intellectually aware of the severity of the whole course. You must give up the world for love, the material for the moral idea. Before that, in its turn, is surrendered to the spiritual, and so on. This is a Layla chapter, but in it, Layla figures as the Mira figure. Chapter 77, Plover's Eggs. Spring beans and strawberries are in. Goodbye to the oyster. If I really knew what I wanted, I could give up Layla, or give up everything for Layla. But what I want varies from hour to hour. This wavering is the root of all compromise, and so of all good sense. With this gift, a man can spend his 70 years in peace. Now is this well or ill? Emphasize gift, then man, then spend then 70 years, and lastly peace, and change the intonations. Each time reverse the meaning. I would show you how, but for the moment, I prefer to think of Layla. Commentary. The title is explained in the note, but also alludes to paragraph 1, the plover's egg being often contemporary with the early strawberry. Paragraph 1 means that change of diet is pleasant. Vanity pleases the mind. The ID fix is a sign of insanity. See paragraphs 4 and 5. Paragraph 6 puts the question, then, is sanity or insanity desirable? The oak is weakened by the ivy which clings around it, but perhaps the ivy keeps it from going mad. The next paragraph expresses the difficulty of expressing thought in writing. It seems on the face of it absurd that the text of this book, composed as it of English, simple, austere, and terse, should need a commentary. But it does so, or my most gifted cella and myself would hardly have been at the pains to write one. It was in response to the impassioned appeals of many most worthy brethren that we have yielded up that time and thought which gold could not have bought or torture rested. Layla is again the mere woman. Note 38. These eggs being speckled resemble the wandering mind referred to. Chapter 78. Phaeton. No. Yes. Perhaps. Ya, hail, ye spavin. Gelded hamstrung horses, ye shall surpass the planets in their courses. How? Not by speed nor strength nor power to stay, but by the silence that succeeds the day. Comment RUI. Phaeton was the charioteer of the sun in Greek mythology. At first sight, the prose of this chapter, though there is only one dissyllable, appears difficult. But this is a glamour cast by Maya. It is a compendium of various systems of philosophy. No equals nihilism, yes equals monism, and all dogmatic systems perhaps equals Pyrrhonism and agnosticism. One equals the system of liber legis. See Chapter 0, I equals phallicism. Compare Chapters 61 and 70. I equals Fichteanism, I equals transcendentalism. But all this is a glamour cast by Maya. The real meaning of the prose of this chapter is as follows. No, some negative conception beyond the it spoken of in chapters 31, 49, and elsewhere. Yes, it, perhaps the flux of these. Oh, nuit, had it, rahor quit. I, the phallus in Kether, I, the ego in Chokmah. I, Binna, the feminine principle fertilized, he bayad. But all this is again only a glamour of Maya, as previously observed in the text, chapter 31. All this is true and false, and it is true and false to say that it is true and false. The prose of this chapter combines, and of course denies, all these meanings both singly and in combination. It is intended to stimulate thought to the point where it explodes with violence, and forever. A study of this chapter is probably the best shortcut to Nibbana. The thought of the master in this chapter is exceptionally lofty. That this is the true meaning, or rather use, of this chapter is evident fro the poetry. The master salutes the previous paragraphs as horses, which, although in themselves worthless animals, without the epithets, carry the charioteer in the path of the sun. The question, how? Not by their own virtues, but by the silence which results when they are all done with. The word nay is a pun on nay, which refers to the negative conception already postulated as beyond it. The suggestion is that there may be something falsely described as silence to represent absence of conception beyond that negative. It would be possible to interpret this chapter in its entirety as an adverse criticism of metaphysics as such, and this is doubtless one of its many submeanings. Chapter 79. The sublime and supreme septenary in its mature magical manifestation through matter. In its mature magical manifestation through matter, as it is written. And he-goat also commentary, 77 is the number of Lila, to whom this chapter is wholly devoted. The first section of the title is an analysis of 77 considered as a mystic number. 7 the septenary, 11 the magical number. 77 the manifestation, therefore, of the septenary through matter, because 77 is written in Hebrew ayin zayin, Oz and he-goat, the symbol of matter, Capricornus, the devil of the tarot, which is the picture of the goat of the Sabbath upon an altar, worshipped by two other devils, male and female. As will be seen from the photogravure inserted opposite this chapter, Layla is herself not devoid of devil, but as she habitually remarks on being addressed in terms implying this fact. It's nice to be a devil when you're one like me. The text need no comment, but it will be noticed that it is much shorter than the title. Now the devil of the tarot is the phallus, the redeemer, and Layla symbolizes redemption to Frater B. The number 77 also, interpreted as in the title, is the redeeming force. The ratio of the length of title and text is the key to the true meaning of the chapter, which is that redemption is really as simple as it appears complex. That the names, or veils, of truth are obscure and many, the truth itself plain and one, but that the latter must be reached through the former. This chapter is therefore an apology where one needed for the Book of Lies itself. In these few simple words, It explains the necessity of the book and offers it humbly, yet with confidence as a means of redemption to the world of sorrowing men. The name with full stops, LALAH, represents an analysis of the name, which may be left to the ingenium of the advanced practicus. See photograph. Chapter 80. Wheel and Woa, the great wheel of samsara, the wheel of the law Udhama, the wheel of the heavens, the wheel of life. All these wheels be one, yet of all these the wheel of the Taro alone avails thee consciously. Meditate long and broad and deep, man, upon this wheel, revolving it in thy mind, be this thy task, to see how each card springs necessarily from each other, card, even in due order from the fool unto the 10 of coins. Then when thou knowest in the wheel of destiny complete, mayst thou perceive that will which moved it first. There is no first or last, and lo, thou art passed through the abyss. Comment RUI. The number of this chapter is that of the cards of the tarot. The title of this chapter is a pun of the phrase, wheel and woe. It means motion and rest. The moral is the conventional mystic one. Stop thought at its source. 5 wheels are mentioned in this chapter. All but the third refer to the universe as it is. But the wheel of the tarot is not only this, but represents equally the magical path. This practice is therefore given by Frater P. to his pupils to treat the sequence of the cards as cause and effect, thence to discover the cause behind all causes. Success in this practice qualifies for the grade of Master of the Temple. In the penultimate paragraph, the bracketed passage reminds the student that the universe is not to be contemplated as a phenomenon in time. Chapter 81. The bal boulier. Some men look into their minds, into their memories, and find naught but pain and shame. These then proclaim the good law unto mankind. These preach renunciation, virtue, cowardice in every form. These whine eternally, smug, toothless, hairless coot, debauch emasculated Buddha. Come ye to me. I have a trick to make you silent, ye foamers at the mouth. Nature is wasteful, but how well she can afford it. Nature is false, but I'm a bit of a liar myself. Nature is useless, but then how beautiful she is. Nature is cruel, but I too am a sadist. The game goes on. It had been too rough for Buddha, but it's, if anything, too dull for me. Viens beau nigre, donne-moi de livrer encore. Commentary. The title of this chapter is a place frequented by Frater P. until it became respectable. The chapter is a rebuke to those who can see nothing but sorrow and evil in the universe. The Buddhist analysis may be true, but not for men of courage. The plea that love is sorrow, because its ecstasies are only transitory, is contemptible. Paragraph 5. Coot is a blackmailer exposed by the equinox. The end of the paragraph refers to Catullus, his famous epigram about the youth who turned his uncle into Harpocrates. It is a subtle way for Frater P. to insist upon his virility, since otherwise he could not employ the remedy. The last paragraph is a quotation. In Paris, Negroes are much sought after by sportive ladies. This is therefore presumably intended to assert that even women may enjoy life sometimes. The word sadist is taken from the famous Marquis de Sade, who gave supreme literary form to the joys of torture. Chapter 82. Blackthorn. The price of existence is eternal warfare. 39. Speaking as an Irishman, I prefer to say, the price of eternal warfare is existence, and melancholy as existence is, the price is well worth paying. Is there as a government? Then I'm egging it. To hell with the bloody English. Zero frater perdurabo. How unworthy are these sentiments? Do you want a clip on the jaw? 40. Commentary. Frater P. continues the subject of chapter 79. He pictures himself as a vigorous, reckless, almost rowdy Irishman. He is no thin-lipped prude to seek salvation in unmanly self-abnegation, no creeping Jesus to slink through existence to the tune of the dead marching soul, no Cremerian callous to warehouse his semen in his cerebellum. New Thoughtist is only old eunuch writ small. Paragraph 2 gives the very struggle for life, which disheartens modern thinkers as a good enough reason for existence. Paragraph 5 expresses the sorrow of the modern thinker, and paragraph 6 Frater P.'s suggestion for replying to such critics. Notes 39. SEVD. The foundation sill of the universe equals AD equals P, the letter of Mott. 40. P also means a mouth. Chapter 83. Luoling. I am not an anarchist in your sense of the word. Your brain is too dense for any known explosive to affect it. I am not an anarchist in your sense of the word. Fancy a policeman let loose on society. While there exists the burgess, the hunting man, or any man with ideals less than Shelley and self-discipline less than Loyalist, in short, any man who falls far short of myself, I am against anarchy. And for feudalism, every emancipator has enslaved the free. Commentary, the title is the name of one of the authors of The Affair of the Haymarket in Chicago. See Frank Harris, The Bomb. Paragraph 1 explains that Freighter Pete sees no use in the employment of such feeble implements as bombs. Nor does he agree even with the anarchists, since, although anarchists themselves need no restraint, not daring to drink cocoa, lest their animal passions should be aroused, as Olivia Haddon assures my favorite Cella, yet policemen, unless most severely repressed, would be dangerous wild beasts. The last bitter sentence is terribly true. The personal liberty of the Russian is immensely greater than that of the Englishman. The latest radical devices for securing freedom have turned 9 out of 10 Englishmen into slaves, obliged to report their movements to the government like so many ticket-of leave men. The only solution of the social problem is the creation of a class with the true patriarchal feeling, and the manners and obligations of chivalry. Chapter 84. Borch. Also imperial purple in a Punic war. Which moon that turnest all the streams to blood, I take this hazel rod and stand, and swear an oath beneath this blasted oak and bare, that rears its agony above the flood, whose swollen mask muters an atheist prayer. What oath may stand the shock of this offense? There is no I, no joy, no permanence. Witch moon of blood, eternal ebb and flow of baffled birth. In death still lurks a change, and all the leopards in thy woods that rage, and all the vampires in their boughs that glow, brooding on bloodthirst. These are not so strange and fierce as life's unfailing shower. These die, yet time rehearse them through eternity. Hear then the oath, with moon of blood, dread let all thy striges and thy ghouls attend. He that endureth even to the end hath sworn that love's own corpse shall lie at noon, even in the coffin of its hopes, and spend all the force won by its old woe and stress in now annihilating nothingness. This chapter is called Imperial Purple and a Punic War. Commentary, the title of this chapter, and its 2 subtitles, W need no explanation to readers of the classics. This poem, inspired by Jane Chiron, is as simple as it is elegant. The poet asks, in verse 1, how can we baffle the 3 characteristics? In verse 2, he shows that death is impotent against life. In verse 3, he offers the solution of the problem. This is to accept things as they are, and to turn your whole energies to progress on the path. Chapter 85. The Blind Pig. Many becomes 2 to 1, 1 naught. What comes to naught? What, shall the adept give up his hermit life and go eating, drinking, and making merry? Aye, shall he not do so? He knows that the many is naught, and having naught, enjoys that naught, even in the enjoyment of the many. For when naught becomes absolute naught, it becomes again the many. This many and this naught are identical. They are not correlatives or phases of some deeper absence of idea. They are not aspects of some further light. They, beware, my brother, lest this chapter deceive thee. Commentary. The title of this chapter refers to the Greek number, PG being pig without an I. The subject of the chapter is consequently corollary to chapters 79 and 80, the ethics of adept life. The adept has performed the great work. He has reduced the many to naught. As a consequence, he is no longer afraid of the many. Paragraph 4. See Bereshith. Paragraph 5 takes things for what they are. Give up interpreting, refining away, analyzing. Be simple and lucid and radiant as Froder P. Paragraph 6. With this commentary, there is no further danger, and the warning becomes superfluous. Note 41 equals PG equals pig without an I equals blind pig. Chapter 86. The Avalanche. Only through devotion to Frater Perdurabo may this book be understood. How much more then should he devote himself to awas for the understanding of the holy books of? Yet must he labor underground eternally. The sun is not for him, nor the flowers, nor the voices of the birds, for he is passed beyond all these. Yea, verily, oft times he is weary. It is well that the way of the karma of the infinite is with him. Therefore is he glad indeed, for he hath finished the work, and the reward concerneth him no whit. Commentary. Pithis continues the subject of chapter 83. The title refers to the mental attitude of the master. The avalanche does not fall because it is tired of staying on the mountain, or in order to crush the Alps below it, or because that it feels that it needs exercise. Perfectly unconscious, perfectly indifferent, it obeys the laws of cohesion and of gravitation. It is the sun and its own weight that loosen it. So also is the act of the adept, delivered from the lust of result. He is every way perfect. Paragraphs 1 and 2. By devotion to Frater Perdurabo is not meant sycophancy, but intelligent reference and imaginative sympathy. Put your mind in tune with his. Identify yourself with him as he seeks to identify himself with the intelligence that communicates to him the holy books. Paragraphs 3 and 4 are explained by the 13th Aether and the title. Chapter 87. Borberig me, I distrust any thoughts uttered by any man whose health is not robust. All other thoughts are surely symptoms of disease. Yet these are often beautiful, and may be true within the circle of the conditions of the speaker. And yet again, do we not find that the most robust of men express no thoughts at all? They eat, drink, sleep, and copulate in silence. What better proof of the fact that all thought is disease? We are Strasbourg geese. The tastiness of our talk comes from the disorder of our bodies. We like it. This only proves that our tastes also are depraved and debauched by our disease. Commentary. We now return to that series of chapters which started with chapter 8. The chapter is perfectly simple and needs no comment. Chapter 88. Tat N. The fire that twisteth itself and burneth like a scorpion. I, the unsullied ever-flowing water. H, the interpenetrating spirit without and within. Is not its name Abrahabra, I, the unsullied ever-flowing air. The green fertile earth. Fierce are the fires of the universe, and on their daggers they hold aloft the bleeding heart of earth. Upon the earth lies water, sensuous and sleepy. Above the water hangs air, and above air, but also below fire, and in all the fabric of all being woven on its invisible design, is commentary. The number 86 refers to Elam, the name of the elemental forces. The title is the Sanskrit for that, in its sense of the existing. This chapter is an attempt to replace Elohim by a more satisfactory hieroglyph of the elements. The best attribution of Elohim is Aleph, air, lamed, earth, he, spirit, yod, fire, mem, water, but the order is not good. Lamed is not satisfactory for earth, and yod too spiritualized a form of fire. But see Book 4, Part 3, paragraphs 1 to 6. Out of nothing, nothing is made. The word nihil is taken to affirm that the universe is nothing, and that is now to be analyzed. The order of the element is that of Jeheshua. The elements are taken rather as in nature, and is easily fire, since Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. The virginity of I suits air and water, elements which in magic are closely interwoven. H, the letter of a breath, is suitable for spirit. Abrahadabra is called the name of spirit because it is Cheth. L is earth green and fertile, because Venus the greenest, fertility, and earthiness of things is the lady of Libra, lamed. In paragraph 7, we turn to the so-called Jetsiratic attribution of Pentagrammaton that followed by Dr. D, and by the Hindus, Tibetans, Chinese, and Japanese. Fire is the foundation, the central core of things. Above this forms a crust, tormented from below, and upon this condenses the original steam. Around this flows the air created by earth and water through the action of vegetation. Such is the globe, but all this is a mere strain in the aether. Here is a new pentagrammaton, presumably suitable for another analysis of the elements, but after a different manner. Alpha is air, Rho the sun. These are the spirit and the son of Christian theology. In the midst is the Father expressed as Father and Mother. I hate yod and he, and da being used to express the mother instead of epsilon, to show that she has been impregnated by the spirit. It is the rough breathing, and not the soft. The center of all is theta, which was originally written as a point in a circle sun. The sublime hieroglyph of the sun in the macrocosm, and in the microcosm of the lingam in conjunction with the yoni. This word, aether, is therefore a perfect hieroglyph ph of the cosmos in terms of Gnostic theology. The reader should consult La Messe et ses Mystères, par Jean-Marie de Vic, Paris at Nancy, 1844, for a complete demonstration of the incorporation of the solar and phallic mysteries in Christianity. Chapter 89, Mandarin Meals. There is a dish of shark's fins and of sea slug, well set in birds' nests. Oh, also there is a souffle exquisite of chow-chow. These did I devise. But I have never tasted anything to match the which she gave me before she went away. March 22nd, 1912. EV Commentary. This chapter is technically one of the Layla chapters. It means that, however great may be one's own achievements, the gifts from on high are still better. The sigil is taken from a Gnostic talisman and refers to the sacrament. Chapter 90. Gold bricks. Softness of their heads I taught them magic, but alas, teach us your real secret, master. How to become invisible, how to acquire love, and beyond all that, gold. But how much gold will you give me for the secret of infinite riches? Then said the foremost and most foolish, Master, it is nothing, but here is 100,000 pounds. This did I deign to accept, and whispered in his ear this secret. A sucker is born every minute. Commentary, the term gold bricks is borrowed from American finance. The chapter is a setting of an old story. A man advertises that he could tell anyone how to make 400 a year certain, and would do so on receipt of a shilling. To every sender he dispatched a postcard with these words, "Do as I do." The word sucker is borrowed from American finance. The moral of the chapter is that it is no good trying to teach people who need to be taught. Chapter 91. Unprofessional Conduct. I am annoyed about the number 89. I shall avenge myself by writing nothing in this chapter. That, too, is wise. For since I am annoyed, I could not write even a reasonably decent lie. Commentary. Frater P. had been annoyed by a scurvy doctor, the number of whose house was 89. He shows that his mind was completely poisoned in respect to that number by his allowing himself to be annoyed. But note that a good Kabbalist cannot err. In him all is right. 89 is body, that which annoys, and the angel of the Lord of despair and cruelty. Also silence and shut up. The four meanings completely describe the chapter. Chapter 92, Starlight. Behold, I have lived many years, and I have traveled in every land that is under the dominion of the sun, and I have sailed the seas from pole to pole. Now do I lift up my voice and testify that all is vanity on earth, except the love of a good woman, and that good woman, Layla. And I testify that in heaven all is vanity, for I have journeyed oft, and sojourned oft in every heaven, except the love of Our Lady Babylon. And I testify that beyond heaven and earth is the love of Our Lady Nuit. And seeing that I am old and well stricken in years, and that my natural forces fail, therefore do I rise up by my throne, and call upon the end. For I am youth eternal and force infinite. And at the end is she that was Layla in Babylon and knew it, being commentary. This chapter is a sort of final confession of faith. It is the unification of all symbols and all planes. The end is expressible. Chapter 93. The Heikel, A-M-E-N commentary. The Heikel is to be distinguished from the Huckle, which latter is defined in the late Sir W.S. Gilbert's Prince Cherrytop. A clear definition of the Heikel might have been obtained from Mr. Oscar Eckenstein, 34 Greencroft Gardens, South Hampstead, London, N.W. when this comment was written. But its general nature is that of a certain minute whiteness, appearing at the extreme end of great blackness. It is a good title for the last chapter of this book, and it also symbolizes the eventual coming out into the light of his that has wandered long in the darkness. 91 is the numberation of Ement. The chapter consists of an analysis of this word, but gives no indication as to the result of this analysis, as if to imply this. The final mystery is always insoluble. Finis coronat opus.